Chapter 923. You, Sky Eagle King, suspected that he was hallucinating. What did the other party say? He wanted the Black Dragon Old Ancestor to talk to him. Who was the Black Dragon Old Ancestor? He was an existence comparable to Su King, Air Emperor, and the others. Even the Dragon King was slightly inferior to him. Although Yi Chun was a peak king, he had just matured. Whether he could escape the pursuit of a titled monarch was still an unknown. Yi Chun, don't make a mistake. The consequences of offending the Red-Eye Black Dragon clan is not something a peak king like you can bear. Even if Shinho joined in, it would still be impossible. Sky Eagle King said loudly. Yi Chun narrowed his eyes and said coldly, "Take your people and get the hell out of this island. I'll give you 3 days to retreat. After 3 days, you'll be killed without mercy." The island where the Dragon God Celestial Palace was located was extremely huge, equivalent to a small domain. It was impossible to evacuate in a few hours. Therefore, Yi Chun gave the other 3 days. Of course, if the other party dragged the time, they couldn't blame him for being merciless. With his peak king strength, he could easily slaughter the enemies on the island. Retreat. After operating the Undying Art, Whirlwind King, whose aura was extremely weak, coldly glanced at Yi Chun and said word by word, "Yi Chun, you're on your own." Sky Eagle King was furious, but he had no choice but to swallow his anger. He was looking forward to the Black Dragon Old Ancestor teaching Yi Chun a lesson. Even if he couldn't kill him, he would make him flee like a stray dog. As for now, it was better to retreat first. At worst, he could reoccupy this different island. In any case, with the Black Dragon Old Ancestor's strength, he could turn the sky upside down for Yi Chun. Are we really going to retreat? How can this Yi Chun have the strength of a peak king? To be able to easily defeat 4 kings. If he wasn't a peak king, what else could he be? The people of the 4 factions on the island were all dumbstruck, their expressions sluggish. Too powerful. He has just entered life and death realm. Yet he is already this powerful. This is too heaven-defying. Someone couldn't help but say. Since Yi Chun did not go all out, Whirlwind King, Black King, and Water Wave King did not have to worry about their lives. Of course, their cultivation base had been reduced by a lot. If they did not have a large amount of Supreme Great Spirit Stones or Zhen Yuan crystals to recover their Zhen Yuan, they would not be able to return to their peak state within a few years. The retreat proceeded very quickly. On the morning of the 4th day, most of the people from the 4 great powers had already retreated. There were still some people who didn't manage to retreat in time. Yi Chun didn't make things difficult for them. In any case, it was fine as long as the elites left. These people who did odd jobs were mostly ordinary people with very low cultivation. The people of the 4 forces returned to where they had come from. On the huge island, apart from some imprisoned people of Dragon God, Celestial Palace, and Yi Chun, there were no outsiders. 9-9 Origin Return Formation. No wonder the 4 major forces are eyeing this island. The current Yi Chun was no longer the old Yi Chun. With a sweep of his soul power, he could clearly see all kinds of restrictions and arrays on the island. There were many restrictions and arrays on the island, but the core was an extremely rare 9-9 Origin Return Formation. 9-9 Origin Return Formation was extremely difficult to arrange. It required 81 spirit veins. The higher the quality of the spirit vein, the greater the might of the 9-9 Origin Return Formation. The lowest grade spirit vein on the island was mid-grade, with 64 of them. As for upper grade spirit veins, it reached 27. The surging Yuan Qi of spirit stones was completely locked in the formation. Then, with the formation as the center, it transmitted Yuan Qi to other arrays and restrictions, forming a strict system. The 9-9 Yuan Return Great Formation had 3 main functions. First, it could provide power for the other formations. Second, it could gather Yuan Qi and increase the density of the Yuan Qi. Training inside it, 1 day would be equivalent to 9 days. For example, if Yi Chun lost a part of his cultivation, without using extreme rank spirit stones and Zhen Yuan crystals, he would need 9 months to recover. However, inside the 9-9 Yuan Return Great Formation, he would only need 1 month, which would save him 8 months. As for the third function, it was defensive. 9-9 Origin Return Formation could mobilize the boundless Yuan Qi of Spirit Stones and form a powerful Yuan Qi wall, blocking the attacks of external enemies. For a sect, this was extremely important. After all, it was hard to avoid offending a life and death king. If the latter came for revenge, without the protection of the formation, a casual move from him could cause a disastrous loss to the sect. With a few more moves, he could completely destroy a 5th-grade sect without a life and death king. Apart from this, the 81 spirit veins in itself was a huge fortune, enough to make any 5th-grade sect green with envy. It was impossible for the 4 parties to let go of this fat meat in front of their mouths. Occupying this island was naturally a must. Unfortunately, the arrival of Yichun made them spit out the fat meat they had swallowed. One could well imagine how painful it was. The space twisted, and a white-robed Xianhou appeared in front of Yichun. "Senior Yan," Yichun looked over. "If I'm not wrong, your battle strength should have reached the high stage of 4 stars, or even the peak stage." Xuanhou's insight was not something that Whirlwind King and the others could compare with. Yichun said honestly, more or less peak stage. Before creating the second sword of vibrational sword arts, Yichun's battle strength was the high stage of 4 stars. Now, it would not be too much to say that it was peak stage. Of course, without verifying it, he could not be sure. Very good. After receiving Yichun's reply, a smile appeared on Xuanhou's face. "You are proficient in the space ultimacy. As long as you are not pursued by titled monarchs who are proficient in speed, there will not be more than 3 people in Elysium who are confident of killing you. However, you cannot be careless. If you can avoid offending titled monarchs, it is best not to do so." A battle between monarchs was ever-changing. No one dared to say that they would always be undefeatable, and titled monarchs were titled monarchs after all. Their attacks were extremely powerful. "That is natural." Yichun nodded. "As for the Black Dragon Patriarch, you do not need to worry. In a situation where he is not confident, he will not come looking for trouble. Back then, your senior Dragon King was weaker than him, but he did not come looking for trouble. As long as we do not take the initiative to provoke him, it will be fine." The Black Dragon Patriarch was a demon king who had lived longer than the Dragon King. In Elysium, the lifespan of humans was 1,000 years, but the lifespan of demonic beasts was more than that. This did not mean that Elysium favored demonic beasts. It was mainly because humans were born with intelligence. Some demonic beasts might not have much intelligence, even after living for hundreds of years. In terms of the day they were born, many demon kings had lived for more than 1,000 years, or even 2,000 years. However, in terms of the day they gained intelligence, the life of a demonic beast would not exceed 1,000 years. As a demon king who had lived for so long, the Black Dragon Patriarch cherished his feathers very much. He would not easily cause trouble. Unless he was 90% sure of success, he would not strike. The news of Yichun's domineering return and defeating the 4 kings of Eastern Shallow Ocean spread like a violent storm. In a short period of time, it spread throughout the entire True Spirit continent. Then, with True Spirit continent as the center, it spread to the 4 shallow ocean regions, 4 deep ocean regions, and the other 2 continents. At this moment, as long as it was a populated place, whether it was a tea house, a restaurant, or some other lively place, everyone was talking about Yichun. Entering life and death realm at the age of 32, a peak king as soon as he became a king. This Yichun is definitely the #1 genius after Yuan Emperor. His future is boundless. Isn't that right? The Eastern Shallow Ocean's 4 kings are not ordinary kings, but high-step kings. For them to lose to a genius who has just entered life and death realm, it speaks volumes. Yichun is the leading figure of our True Spirit continent's young generation. Now that he is the first to enter life and death realm, Duguju, Dantai Mingwe, and the rest must be secretly exerting their strength as well. I wonder who will be the second to enter life and death realm. Will it be Duguju, or will it be Dantai Mingwe? Or perhaps the veteran Luo Tiandu? Difficult. Entering life and death realm is no small matter. One needs to comprehend life and death Tao. Death Tao is easy to comprehend, but life Tao is not. In a short period of time, Yi Chen's fame skyrocketed. If his identity was limited to the ranks of geniuses before, then now, he had become an influential figure in Elysium, comparable to Su King, Xianhou, Evil King, and the rest. In the future, when talking about geniuses, Yi Chen would definitely be mentioned. It was just like before when people talked about geniuses, they would first mention Xianhou. Peak King? He really can't be underestimated. After receiving the news, a strange light flickered in Air Emperor's eyes. In the eastern deep sea, there was a black island. At the center of the island was a majestic city. In the center of the city was a palace. Sky Eagle King pays his respects to old ancestor. The inside of the palace was vast and deep. Sky Eagle King bowed and cupped his fists. Sky Eagle King, I already know your purpose in coming here. Go back. On the black golden dragon throne, an old man with eyes like lightning spoke with an expressionless face. Sky Eagle King raised his head in astonishment. Old ancestor, what do you mean? The old man was precisely old ancestor Black Dragon. He said, don't provoke him for the time being. Let's wait and see. Old ancestor. Sky Eagle King was anxious. If old ancestor Black Dragon didn't help him, how could he take back the dragon god, Celestial Palace? Although he had already prepared for the worst, he didn't expect old ancestor Black Dragon to refuse so bluntly. Old ancestor, that Yi Chen clearly knows that our four forces are cooperating with old ancestor, yet he still dares to oppose us. He clearly doesn't put old ancestor in his eyes. If this matter were to spread, it would damage old ancestor's prestige. Impudent, the entire city fiercely shook. Black and red chi flowed out of old ancestor Black Dragon's body. A frightening pressure instantly acted on Sky Eagle King's body, causing his breathing to stagnate and his complexion to turn pale. Old ancestor, please calm down. Sky Eagle King hurriedly said. If you provoke me again, I won't be lenient. Old ancestor Black Dragon coldly snorted. Yes. Sky Eagle King's forehead was covered in sweat. Go back. Waving his hand, old ancestor Black Dragon impatiently said. Not daring to say anything, Sky Eagle King retreated out of the palace and entered the void, leaving the island. Daring to oppose me right after entering life and death realm? This debt will be settled in the future. Although old ancestor Black Dragon didn't intend to help the four forces, it didn't mean that he wasn't angry. If there was an opportunity in the future, he would find Yi Chen to settle the debt. Chapter 924. The number of people imprisoned in Dragon God Celestial Palace was numerous. After all, no matter how big the secret realm was, the number of people it could hold was limited. It could only transport the elites inside. Due to the island's size and the number of people imprisoned, Yi Chen had no choice but to release a portion of the people and have them liberate the others, allowing them to regroup in the palace plaza. A few days later, everyone was released. The people of Dragon God Celestial Palace were no strangers to Yi Chen. One was Xianhou, and the other was Yi Chen. Both of them were firm allies. Now that Dragon King's fate was unknown, Xianhou and Yi Chen were undoubtedly the palace's final reliance. It's Yi Chen. Yi Chen recovered Dragon God Celestial Palace. A Peak King. Another Peak King has appeared in the world. Palace Master's eyesight is indeed formidable. Who could have expected that Yi Chen would have the strength of a Peak King as soon as he entered life and death realm? How can you call him by his name? You should call him Dragon God Envoy or His Highness Yi Chen. Tens of thousands of Dragon God Celestial Palace's members were gathered in a plaza, discussing spiritedly. As members of Dragon God Celestial Palace, although they were usually modest on the surface, they were extremely proud in their bones. However, with Dragon King's departure, Dragon God Celestial Palace's position immediately became awkward. Without a life and death king overseeing it, Dragon God Celestial Palace would no longer be the Dragon God Celestial Palace of the past. Its grade would also drop by a grade, becoming a 6th grade Overlord sect at most. This was also the main reason why many fifth-grade sects were fervently nurturing their second and third life and death kings. In fact, Dragon God Celestial Palace used to have more than one life and death king. At their peak, they had 3. Unfortunately, apart from Dragon King, one died in a king-grade forbidden zone, and the other was killed by a star beast. Thereafter, no matter what price Dragon King and Dragon God Celestial Palace paid, they were unable to cultivate the 4th life and death king. They could only set their sights on outsiders, and thus, Xianhou and Yi Chun came into being. The majestic Dragon God Celestial Palace had been invaded by 4 major forces. This made the members of Dragon God Celestial Palace feel extremely humiliated. In the past, as long as Dragon King was present, who would dare to provoke Dragon God Celestial Palace, let alone invade and occupy it? Therefore, when Yi Chun reclaimed Dragon God Celestial Palace, they were extremely moved and grateful. Your Highness Yi Chun, many thanks for saving Dragon God Celestial Palace. An old man of high status stepped forward and cupped his fists. Yi Chun said, as Dragon God Envoy of Dragon God Celestial Palace, reclaiming Dragon God Celestial Palace is also one of my missions. There's no need to thank me. Back when Yi Chun was still a Sea of Soul Master, he was conferred the position of Dragon God Envoy by Dragon King. Although his authority was not as great as Azure Dragon Hall leaders, his position was extremely high, second only to Goddess Su Jing. He could be said to be Su Jing's protector and spokesperson. Your Highness Yi Chun, is Palace Master really gone? Suddenly, another old man stood up and asked. Yi Chun pondered for a moment, then said, I'm not too clear. Perhaps Senior Dragon King has already left Elysium, perhaps. Yi Chun didn't finish his words. Entering the death road was extremely dangerous. In the records, even 4 Extreme Emperor hadn't made it out. One could well imagine how difficult it was. Of course, deep in his heart, he hoped that Senior Dragon King had heaven-defying luck and successfully left Elysium. In that case, they might meet again one day. Rumble. Just as the old man was about to continue speaking, the sky suddenly darkened. Black clouds, as if ignoring space and time, quietly gathered together. Black lightning filled the horizon, and a frightening pressure came from the depths of the void, faintly carrying a dragon roar. Dragon might. Yi Chun squinted his eyes, his expression grave. Dragon might was the will of a giant dragon. Normally, only flood dragons with dragon bloodline could emit dragon might. He remembered that when Yi Chun first came to Sky Martial region and roamed the savage, desolate ancient land, he encountered an ice flood dragon which contained a faint dragon might. Then, in the dragon ruins, he saw a genuine giant dragon skeleton, which contained an extremely powerful dragon might. It was clearly an inanimate object, but it was still difficult to approach. The dragon might before his eyes was countless times more powerful than the ice flood dragon's dragon might. It was even above the giant dragon skeleton's dragon might. After all, the giant dragon skeleton was an inanimate object, and its dragon might was less than 10%. Under this dragon might, the whole heaven and earth turned silent. The seawater gradually calmed down, and the wind stopped blowing. Under life and death realm, no one could move. Even blinking and breathing were difficult. In the whole world, only 2 people could emit such a dragon might. One was the Black Dragon Old Ancestor, and the other was the Dragon King. The Dragon King's fate was unknown, so the answer was obvious. Black Dragon Old Ancestor. Not good. Black Dragon Old Ancestor is here. Everybody screamed inwardly, their faces turning pale. Black Dragon Old Ancestor was one of the oldest titled monarchs in Elysium. Although he didn't often appear in public, there wasn't a single peak martial artist who hadn't heard of his name. Black Dragon Old Ancestor had personally come. Clearly, Yi Chun had angered him. Yi Chun, you're really daring. A loud voice could be heard, which felt like the might of the heavens. Black Dragon Old Ancestor, why don't we meet? Yi Chun's lips curled into a smile. Meet? Humph. I'm afraid I won't be able to control myself and kill you. The cold voice completely ignored the distance and directly smashed down. Many thanks to Old Ancestor for not killing me. How could Yi Chun not see that Black Dragon Old Ancestor had not come to kill him? He had made such a big commotion mainly to probe and express his attitude, as well as to warn Yi Chun. Of course, if Yi Chun's strength and speed weren't worth mentioning, Black Dragon Old Ancestor probably wouldn't mind killing him to prevent future troubles. Therefore, Yi Chun didn't want to continue angering him, so he gave him a way out. You think by lowering your stance, my anger will be appeased? Roar. A resounding dragon roar resounded through the 9 heavens. In the sky filled with black clouds, an enormous black horned dragon was faintly discernible. A frightening dragon might spread out, shaking the heaven and earth within thousands of li. It seemed as if the world would shatter at any moment, falling into a doomsday world. Whoosh! A black dragon claw of the black dragon reached down. This black dragon claw was a bit too big, covering the sun and the moon, as well as any light. As a result, when the claw reached down, it gave people a feeling that the sky had collapsed. Each of those sharp nails was like a steep mountain, while the palm was like a plain. The world was turning upside down. Everything was in this claw. I can't block it. Yi Chun's expression changed. The black dragon was not the real body of Black Dragon Old Ancestor, but an illusion of him. His real body should be hiding in the void. Even so, the claw of the black-horned dragon still gave Yi Chun a premonition that he couldn't block it. Flood dragons were extremely powerful, and the red-eyed black dragon was an outstanding one among the flood dragons, occupying the position of Overlord. Flood dragons cultivated to the level of Monster King. Not only was their demonic power unparalleled, their physical body was also unbelievably strong. They cultivated both internal and external energy and could be said to be invincible among their peers. They didn't need to be too profound to deal a fatal blow. Rumble. The entire island of the dragon god, Celestial Palace, was shaking. The black dragon claw was as fast as lightning, grabbing a corner of the huge island. That 1,000-li perimeter corner was instantly torn off, as if an apple had been bitten off, without the slightest bit of sloppiness. The ocean surged, and tsunamis continued. The black dragon claw retracted. Space profound movement art. In the depths of the void, Black Dragon Old Ancestor's voice carried a hint of anger. Yi Chun, you better not continue to anger me. Otherwise, you'll have to bear my strongest wrath. The voice gradually faded away. Black Dragon Old Ancestor had left. I won't be seeing you off. In the sky, Yi Chun's figure appeared. The black dragon claw was too powerful. Even if Yi Chun could block it, he would definitely be in a difficult situation. Moreover, he didn't plan to fight to the death with the Black Dragon Old Ancestor, so he didn't intend to block it. Instead, he directly used his space profound movement art to dodge the attack. Of course, this was only him. If it were someone else, they wouldn't be able to dodge no matter how hard they tried. Only the space profound could ignore the limitation of distance to a certain extent. The weak are prey to the strong. Fortunately, I'm not a weakling anymore. The Black Dragon Old Ancestor left as fast as he came. This was mainly because he knew that he couldn't do anything to Yi Chun. With the space profound, although Yi Chun couldn't beat him, he could still escape safely. Instead of that, he might as well stop while he was ahead. A slight warning would suffice. If he really set his mind on killing Yi Chun, it would only make him lose face. However, Yi Chun also knew that although the Black Dragon Old Ancestor couldn't do anything to him, it didn't mean that the other titled monarchs couldn't do anything to him. Among the titled monarchs of the same level, the demonic Beast King's battle strength was always very strong. In a head-on battle, they were stronger than human titled monarchs. However, in terms of profound, they were weaker than human titled monarchs. For example, if the Black Dragon Old Ancestor was replaced by Su King or the Air Emperor, Yi Chun might be able to escape safely, but he might also be killed by the other party. It should be known that Su King, Air Emperor, and Xianhou all had some achievements in the space profound. They might not be weaker than Yi Chun. Without the advantage of space profound, Yi Chun could only rely on his powerful soul force. The space profound had a very high requirement on soul force. The stronger one's soul force was, the stronger the space profound of the same realm would be. As soon as the black dragon old ancestor left, the black clouds in the sky rapidly dispersed, and the intense sunlight poured down like a myriad of golden rays. The seawater and the ground were suffused with a faint golden color. Recovering from their stiff bodies, everybody looked at the corner of the island that had turned into seawater and sucked in a breath of cold air. 1,000 li of land had been erased just like that. Ordinary life and death kings would have a hard time accomplishing such a feat. Even peak kings wouldn't be able to do it so easily. Only a tidal monarch could have such an inconceivable method. Yi Chen's soul power was countless times stronger than everybody else's. Through his soul perception, he could clearly see a grand claw print and 4 fingerholes in the ocean. It was like an undersea demon cave, and seawater was pouring in with all its might, filling up the space. However, due to the existence of air, the seawater couldn't fill up halfway. The density of the air was astonishing, and it was contending with the seawater above. Chapter 925. So this is a tidal monarch? Yi Chen's brows creased. As a veteran tidal monarch, Black Dragon Old Ancestor's strength was definitely not low or mid 5-star. He was probably at the same level as Su King and Air Emperor, high 5-star. Senior Dragon King was a bit inferior to them, so he should be mid 5-star. A tidal monarch with high 5-star battle strength, even if it wasn't an all-out attack, would still be extremely frightening. After recovering the Dragon God's Celestial Palace, there was still one more important matter for Yi Chen to do, and that was to find the secret realm. On this day, Yi Chen took out the Golden Dragon Ball and poured his soul power inside. In the depths of the void, a mysterious space formed a connection with the Dragon Ball. This connection was extremely clear, causing the Dragon Ball to flicker. After giving some instructions to the person in charge of the Dragon God Celestial Palace, Yi Chen tore open the space and headed toward the mysterious space. The mysterious space was too far away, and it was not always smooth sailing in the void. There would often be space storms that would crazily attack Yi Chen. There were also some mysterious space curves that would cause Yi Chen to fly forward. But as soon as he encountered a space curve, his trajectory would immediately deviate. If not for the Golden Dragon Ball, Yi Chen would never have found the secret realm. This is a spatial tunnel. Looking at the black void ahead, Yi Chen's brows twitched. The space tunnel had the effect of ignoring the distance between two places. In fact, the transmission gate and transmission array were built according to the principles of the space tunnel. However, the transmission gate and transmission array needed to consume energy to operate. Without energy, they wouldn't be able to operate. On the other hand, the space tunnel itself contained a vast and immeasurable amount of space energy. It was impossible for the space tunnel to run out of energy. Of course, over the endless years, the space tunnel would automatically collapse due to some reason, turning into a terrifying space storm. Swish! With a flicker, Yi Chen entered the spatial tunnel. The moment he exited the spatial tunnel, Yi Chen saw a glowing dot in the distance. That dot was extremely small, but its radiance seemed to ignore the existence of space and time, emitting an everlasting radiance. The mystic realm was right before his eyes. However, Yi Chen knew that it would take a long time to get close to the secret realm. It was like the stars in the sky. Everyone could see them, but not many could reach them. Suddenly, colorful flowers fell from the sky. These flowers could be seen, but they could not be touched. They were the traces of the Tao, the manifestation of the Tao. This was the phenomenon of heavenly flowers falling from the sky. Someone has entered life and death realm. Yi Chen was no stranger to the falling heavenly flowers phenomenon. He himself had caused the falling heavenly flowers phenomenon, and it was the 7-colored heavenly flowers, not the 5-colored heavenly flowers in front of him. Heavenly Sword Continent, in a huge mountain range behind the Azure Cloud Sword sect. Marquis Sword Star, have finally stepped into life and death realm, becoming an existence-like teacher. On a mountain peak as steep as a sword, Marquis Sword Star stood up. His sword Chi soared into the sky, and his surroundings were covered in rubble and lava. Clearly, This was the sign of someone who had experienced a life and death calamity. In life and death secret realm, he was the existence closest to life and death realm. His accomplishments in death Dao far surpassed others. No, at that time, nobody had comprehended death Dao. Later, when Life and Death Palace opened, Duguju was the second one to comprehend death Dao. The others still hadn't comprehended it. Originally, Marquis Swordstar thought that he would be the first to enter life and death realm, but he hadn't expected that there would still be someone ahead of him. Although he didn't know who it was, Yi Chen's figure inexplicably appeared in his mind. His intuition told him that this was the first to enter life and death realm. The reason why Marquis Swordstar was able to enter life and death realm so quickly was largely due to his 7-star point kill sword art. The 5th strike of the 7-star point kill sword art was Star Fall Strike, which contained intense death Dao. While studying Star Fall Strike, he was also comprehending death Dao. As for the 6th strike of 7-star point kill sword art, it contained life Dao. After comprehending life Dao, Marquis Swordstar first learned life kill, and then finally entered life and death realm, becoming a king of a generation. By relying on the 6th strike of 7-star point kill sword art, Marquis Swordstar believed that his battle strength had already reached 3 stars, equivalent to a high-step king of Elysium. Yi Chen, I'm looking forward to our battle. Marquis Swordstar had just entered life and death realm, so he didn't have the time to comprehend profounds. Once he raised his profounds to a level that would be hard to raise in a short time, he would look for an opportunity to compete with Yi Chen. Buzz! The space was torn apart, and a figure appeared on the mountain peak. Teacher! Marquis Swordstar promptly cupped his fists and bowed. Very good. My Azure Cloud Sword Sect finally has a 3rd king. The newcomer's aura was sharp like a heavenly sword, and he wore scholarly robes. He was Azure Cloud Sword Emperor, who had once appeared in the deep sea. Azure Cloud Sword Sect was a great sword sect of Heavenly Sword Continent. Only Snowflake Sword Sect could stand shoulder to shoulder with Azure Cloud Sword Sect. However, Snowflake Sword Sect had 3 kings, while Azure Cloud Sword Sect only had 2. In this regard, Azure Cloud Sword Sect was inferior to Snowflake Sword Sect. Therefore, Marquis Swordstar's breakthrough made Azure Cloud Sword Emperor extremely gratified. One more life and Death King meant one more assurance in the upcoming Great War. Moreover, he was quite optimistic about Marquis Swordstar, believing that he had a great chance of becoming a titled monarch. He even had a good chance of breaking through 5 stars and reaching the highest battle strength of Elysium, 6 stars. Many thanks to teachers' guidance these years. Tian Chun will certainly cultivate diligently. One day, Azure Cloud Sword Sect will become the #1 sword sect of Elysium, the #1 sect. Marquis Swordstar's surname was Wei, and his name was Tian Chun. Azure Cloud Sword Emperor faintly nodded. It's good that you have such thoughts. However, you must not become arrogant and complacent. You also know that there is already a genius who has entered life and death realm before you. Is it Yi Chen? Marquis Swordstar asked. Indeed, his current battle prowess has reached 4 stars. According to my estimation, he has already reached mid-4-star battle prowess, or even high 4-star battle prowess. There's still a big gap between you and him. While speaking, Blue Cloud Sword Emperor sized up Marquis Swordstar, paying attention to the changes in his expression. For star battle strength, Marquis Swordstar's expression turned sluggish, and his fists involuntarily clenched. The difference between 4 stars and 3 stars seemed to be only 1 star, but the difference in battle prowess was like the difference between heaven and earth. It was not an exaggeration to say that in a situation where their speed was the same, a peak king with 4-star battle prowess would be able to kill a high-rank king with 3-star battle prowess effortlessly. They would be able to do so with a wave of their hand. Marquis Swordstar was confident that he could raise his battle strength to peak 3-star or even 3-star tyrant in a short period of time. However, it was impossible for him to reach 4-star. Could it be that I can't surpass him in this lifetime? Marquis Swordstar was extremely unwilling. As a genius, no one was willing to submit to others. There is a saying that a soldier who didn't want to be a general was not a good soldier. It was the same for geniuses. No, I must grasp sword domain. Once I do, I might be able to step into the 4-star realm and become a peak king. Currently, Marquis Swordstar only had mid 3-star battle strength. When he raised his profound to a level that was hard to raise, he would have peak 3-star battle strength or even 3-star tyrant battle strength. Once he grasped sword domain, he would be able to contend against low 4-star battle strength and become a peak king. Apart from this, Yi Chen's strength had also aroused Marquis Swordstar's original motivation. 7-star instant kill sword art had 7 strikes, and he had just grasped the 6th strike, life strike. According to reason, there was still a long way to go before he could grasp the 7th strike of 7-star instant kill sword art as soon as possible, as well as the final strike. He believed that once he fully comprehended the 7-star instant kill sword art, even Yi Chen might not be able to defeat him. Perhaps he would be able to defeat Yi Chen by relying on the 7-star instant kill sword art. Teacher, I will go to the sword world in a while. Marquis Swordstar took a deep breath and said, That's natural. However, your heart can't be disturbed. The most important thing right now is to raise your profound and comprehend the 6th strike of 7-star instant kill sword art, life strike to perfection. On the path of cultivation, the most taboo is to raise one's strength blindly. You have to plan slowly. Azure Cloud Sword Emperor warned. Yes, Tianqin will keep it in mind. Marquis Swordstar. On a certain island in the deep sea, Marquis Sword Snow raised his head and looked at the multicolored heavenly flowers as he called out a person's name. During the first deluge of heavenly flowers, he vaguely knew that it was Yi Chen, but he wasn't sure. This time, he subconsciously called out Marquis Swordstar's name. Marquis Swordstar was the first to comprehend Death Dao, and he was the closest to life and death realm. Marquis Sword Snow couldn't imagine anyone else apart from Yi Chen. Walking on the frost-covered island, Marquis Sword Snow discarded all distracting thoughts and poured his heart and soul into comprehending the Tao of life. One could see with the naked eye that some ice and snow had already started to sprout. It added a little green to the snow-covered ground. The 5-colored sky flower could be seen in every corner of Elysium. Naturally, everyone knew that a new ruler had been born, but they didn't know who it was. Another person has entered life and death realm. Who is it? Could it be another genius? That's impossible. Perhaps it's one of those veteran half-step kings. They've been stuck in the half-step king realm for countless years. Although they have no hope of entering life and death chamber, by chance, they can vaguely sense the cycle of life and death and directly enter life and death realm, becoming a new king. When geniuses entered life and death realm, their battle strength would generally be 2 stars or above. Only those who had entered life and death realm by chance only had 1-star battle strength. However, geniuses were the minority and ordinary life and death kings were the majority. Perhaps it's Marquis Swordstar. In the void, Yi Chen muttered to himself, The more new kings there are, the greater the hope of Elysium's survival. Since the heavens have made this era a great era, the following era will surely be a period of kings. Chapter 926. Marquis Swordstar's breakthrough did not make Yi Chen feel any sense of urgency. In fact, Yi Chen hoped that the geniuses of the same generation as him would also break through, such as Marquis Sword Snow, Dugaju, Dantai Mingyue, and so on. Having only one genius in one generation was a sad thing. Only with competition would there be more motivation. Let's find the secret realm first. With a flash, Yi Chen turned into a transparent ripple and rapidly approached the light dot. The light dot grew bigger and bigger, and Yi Chen could already see clearly that it was not a light dot, but a glowing spherical space. This spherical space had a diameter of 3,000 meters, and it looked very small in the boundless void. It was like a white glass ball flickering in and out. Soon, Yi Chen arrived in front of the spherical space and stopped. I'll have to rely on you. Yi Chen knew that the people inside couldn't see the outside, just like how he couldn't see or sense the inside. If he wanted to enter, there were only 2 ways. One was to break this spherical space barrier and force his way in, and the other was to rely on the Dragon Pearl's power and walk in naturally. Obviously, Yichen would choose the latter. The golden Dragon Pearl in his hand resonated with the spherical space, emitting an intense golden radiance. With a fling of his hand, the pearl floated above Yichen's head. At the same time, Yichen stepped on the void and walked toward the spherical space step by step. Buzz! The moment Yichen came in contact with the spherical space barrier, the translucent space barrier immediately rippled like water. In the next moment, Yichen merged into it and disappeared. Not good. Someone's coming from outside. Yichen's entrance caused a huge uproar in the secret realm. From the outside, the spherical space seemed to have a diameter of 3,000 meters. However, inside, it was more than 3,000 meters. In fact, half of the 10,000 meters diameter spherical space was made up of soil, which was the ground. Buildings of different heights were arranged in an orderly manner, trying to accommodate as many people as possible without being too chaotic. At this moment, in the middle of the many buildings, on a white jade plaza, thousands of people heard the commotion and gathered. After all, the arcane realm was only so big, so they gathered very quickly. Who could have entered the secret realm so easily? Gathered on the plaza were the elites of Dragon God Celestial Palace. There were left and right protectors, members of Elders Association, core disciples, hall masters, and deputy hall masters of Five Dragons Palace, as well as some battle attendants. At this moment, all of them wore nervous expressions, their eyes unblinkingly gazing above. The space there was distorting, and a golden silhouette was slowly emerging. Why does he look like Yichen? No one knew who said it. A figure appeared. Who else could it be but Yichen? Dressed in blue, Yichen descended from the sky and stood on the white jade plaza. The golden dragon pearl on his head was still emitting a golden glow. Yichen, Elder Yu, a member of the Elder Council, shouted. Elder Yu, long time no see. Yichen smiled. It's really Yichen. On the plaza, heated discussions arose. While everyone let out a sigh of relief, they discovered that Yichen's aura was no longer the same as before. He was clearly a life and death king. Yichen, no, your majesty, dragon god envoy, you've broken through? Elder Yu and the other elders walked over and said in pleasant surprise. Yichen nodded, not concealing anything. This is great. Palace Master's insight is indeed not something we can compare to. To be able to break through to life and death realm in such a short time. You're the first in several tens of thousands of years. Right now, Her Majesty is also breaking through. Once she succeeds, our Dragon God Celestial Palace will have 2 life and death kings. The people of Dragon God Celestial Palace felt as if the bitterness was over and the sweetness was beginning. Dragon King had charged into the path of death. Whether he succeeded or failed, he would not return. If he succeeded, he would naturally leave Elysium, and if he wanted to enter, it would not be so easy. If he failed, he would naturally die. Therefore, when Dragon King sent them into the secret realm, they knew that Dragon God Celestial Palace would face an extremely dangerous situation in the days to come. If they wanted to break away from this situation, they could only do so if a new king appeared. Her Majesty Goddess Su Jing's true form was a golden dragon. Some of them knew that once Su Jing broke through to life and death realm, her strength would reach an extremely frightening level. Just think about it. A golden dragon of life and death realm was not something any demonic king could compare to. A true dragon had always been the strongest, and there was no second to it. Perhaps the legendary phoenix could compare to a dragon, but it could never surpass it. Su Jing was formidable, but Yichen was not weak at all. On the contrary, in everyone's eyes, Yichen was a demonic genius that had faintly transcended the limits of his race. Who in the world didn't know of Yichen's name? He had received the title of Swordmaster in his early days, and later on, he had become the first in the life and death substitute list. He had defeated the demonic king, Giant Wolf King, with only life and death chamber cultivation. Yichen alone had obtained all the glory that could be obtained. The geniuses of the same generation paled in comparison to him. Now that Yi Chun had become a life and death king, the people of Dragon God's celestial palace in the secret realm didn't know how powerful he was. However, if one were to say that Yi Chun was not powerful and was just an ordinary king, they wouldn't believe it even if they were beaten to death. Yi Chun had defeated the demonic king, Giant Wolf King, before becoming a life and death king. How could he be weak? With Su Jing and Yi Chun, Dragon God's celestial palace returning to its former glory was only a matter of time. Yi Chun, what's the situation outside? Amidst his joy, Great Elder didn't forget to ask Yi Chun about the current situation of Dragon God Celestial Palace. Actually, this was his subconscious. After all, his feelings for Dragon God Celestial Palace were too deep. He had spent his entire life in Dragon God Celestial Palace. For him, Dragon God Celestial Palace was his home. Hearing these words, everybody looked at Yi Chun expectantly. They were clear that Dragon God Celestial Palace had most likely been occupied by the four major powers. Moreover, Yi Chun had just broken through to life and death realm, so he couldn't do anything to the four major powers. Moreover, the four major powers had the backing of Red-Eyed Black Dragon Clan and Black Dragon Old Ancestor. What they wanted to know was whether the four major powers had slaughtered the members of Dragon God Celestial Palace. Yi Chun faintly smiled. Everyone, rest assured. Dragon God Celestial Palace has been recaptured. What? Dragon God Celestial Palace has been recaptured? No one had expected Yi Chun to say something like this. Yi Chun? Elder, you looked at Yi Chun. Yi Chun explained, the four major powers have already been driven out of Dragon God Celestial Palace by me. Therefore, everyone can rest assured. Dragon God Celestial Palace will not be in danger for a long time. The four major powers won't dare to attack again unless they're tired of living. That Black Dragon Old Ancestor didn't appear? Don't tell me you're already a peak king? Great Elder was very excited and apprehensively asked. He appeared, but he can't do anything to me. Yi Chun's reply gave everybody a boost in confidence. Although they didn't know why Black Dragon Old Ancestor couldn't do anything to Yi Chun, they could understand after thinking about it. Yi Chun was proficient in Space Profound. He must have relied on it to make Black Dragon Old Ancestor feel apprehensive. Between peak kings and titled monarchs, the smallest difference was speed. Some peak kings were even faster than titled monarchs. This Yi Chun saved my Dragon God Celestial Palace. He's a peak king? Among the crowd, the ones with the most complicated emotions were the head disciple Lin Songhai and second disciple Li Feng. These two had some small conflicts with Yi Chun. As if noticing their gazes, Yi Chun faintly smiled and glanced at them. He didn't take the previous small conflicts to heart. Geniuses were all proud. As long as they didn't have any malicious intent, it would be fine. Moreover, he was now a life and death king. How could he purposely make things difficult for Lin Songhai and Li Feng? In his heart, he still hoped that the two could break through to life and death realm as soon as possible and protect the Dragon God Celestial Palace. For a moment, the news of Yi Chun becoming a peak king shocked everybody. It was their first time hearing that there was such a genius who dared to challenge Black Dragon Old Ancestor as soon as he entered life and death realm. Where is my senior sister, Su Jing? Yi Chun suddenly asked. She's in the dragon transformation pool, but she shouldn't be disturbed at the moment. Elder, you replied. No problem. I'll just go in and take a look. Yi Chun said. Taking a look shouldn't be a problem. Let's go. Elder Yu led the way, while the others remained in the plaza, discussing and glancing at Yi Chun from time to time. The secret realm was very small, and the palace in front of the plaza was precisely the location of the dragon transformation pool. Senior Brother Yi, Your Majesty Dragon God Envoy. The guards of the palace were all women, led by Dragon God Celestial Palace's fifth disciple Qin Yusin and former Azure Dragon Hall's battle attendant Xing Melian. These two had long since noticed Yi Chun. However, they didn't dare to leave their posts without permission. Seeing Yi Chun's arrival, their faces revealed reverence. Junior Sister Chun, attendant Xing. Yi Chun remembered these two. Back when he was fighting against the four major powers, these two were his subordinates. Is Senior Brother Yi going to see Her Majesty Goddess? This way. Chen Yusin took the initiative to open the palace's door for Yi Chun. I'll go in alone. Yi Chun sucked in a deep breath and entered the palace. Although the palace wasn't spacious, it was simple and unadorned. Entering the palace, the inside was vast and spacious. The front was blocked by a screen wall. Behind the screen wall, a golden radiance shone. Accompanying the golden radiance was an extremely pure and frightening dragon might. This was the true dragon might. Although it wasn't as powerful as the black dragon old ancestors' dragon might, its essence was countless times more powerful. It gave off a feeling of supremacy and grandeur. Bypassing the screen wall, Yi Chun saw a pool of water. The pool was golden in color, 100 meters long and 50 meters wide. It was visible to the naked eye. Inside the pool, a golden substance was converging, condensing, and ultimately flowing toward the center. In the center of the pool, there was no human figure, only a small golden dragon. This little golden dragon was only a dozen meters long. Although its scales were golden, they didn't seem like gold, but more like golden crystals. The little golden dragon had 5 claws, and there was a pair of horns on its head. Occasionally, golden light would flow along the horns. Overall, the little golden dragon looked very graceful and delicate, but the dragon might it emitted was too strong. It was the complete opposite of what it should be. Chapter 927. Senior Apprentice, Sister, Su Jing. Yi Chun immediately knew that this little golden dragon was none other than Su Jing. Su Jing's original form was that of a golden dragon. For some unknown reason, she had turned into a human. Currently, this dragon transformation pool had the effect of allowing her to return to her original form. Once she did so, she would no longer be a human, but a true golden dragon. Of course, after reaching the demonic king realm, golden dragons could also turn into humans. Vaguely, the little golden dragon seemed to have sensed Yi Chun's arrival and opened its elegant and noble eyes. Junior Apprentice Brother Yi. The little golden dragon swam over and raised its horned head. Senior Apprentice Sister Su Jing, can you still not change back? Yi Chun involuntarily extended his palm and caressed the little golden dragon's horn. It was cool and smooth. The little golden dragon felt very comfortable being caressed, and a trace of redness appeared on its face as it said, "Dragon transformation is usually at the demonic king realm. Wait until I become a demonic king, then I can transform." Generally speaking, the more powerful a demonic beast was, the harder it would be to transform. However, those that could transform at the demonic king realm were few and far between. Of course, there were some exceptions. Some powerful demonic beasts could transform very early. Do I look very ugly right now? The little golden dragon suddenly asked nervously. Yi Chun smiled. How could that be? If you're not used to this body, you can reach the demonic king realm as soon as possible. After chatting for a while, the golden dragon started to feel sleepy. It turned out that Su Jing was in the middle of a breakthrough and would need a long period of sleep before she could do it normally. Not wanting to disturb her, Yi Chun quietly left the palace and closed the door. Senior Apprentice Brother Yi. Seeing Yi Chun come out, Chen Yusin immediately became spirited. Yi Chun said, "The Dragon God's celestial palace has been reclaimed. I'll bring the others out, but you guys can't leave yet. You have to guard this place until the goddess succeeds." Yusin understands. Senior Apprentice Brother Yi, don't worry. Your Highness Dragon God Envoy, Yusin and I will protect Her Highness Goddess, Xing Malian said. Very good. Thank you for your hard work. As he spoke, Yi Chun took out 2 heart-nurturing grasses and 2 spirit-melting grasses from his storage ring and gave them to the 2. Your foundations are not bad. Breaking through to Half-Step King Realm is just around the corner. These 2 grasses are heart-nurturing grasses and spirit-melting grasses. They can help you enter Half-Step King Realm even faster. Half-Step King Realm was a barrier. Once one broke through, they would have the hope of reaching life and death realm. Otherwise, they would never be able to reach life and death realm. In Yi Chun's opinion, Chen Yusin not only had the hope of reaching Half-Step King Realm, but she might also reach life and death challenge realm. Xing Malian's talent was a bit lacking, but she still had the hope of becoming a normal life and death realm warrior. Of course, those who could reach this realm all had hopes of entering life and death realm. Each one was only helping them improve a bit faster. Whether or not they could enter life and death realm would depend on themselves. Many thanks, Senior Brother Yi. Many thanks, Dragon God Envoy. The two girls revealed a joyful expression. They could actually break through to Half-Step King realm as well, but it was still a bit difficult for them at the moment. A single mistake could lead to blood necrosis, which was quite dangerous. However, with the heart-nurturing grasses and spirit-melting grasses, the danger had been reduced by more than half. The Dragon God Celestial Palace had already been recovered. Without the support of the Black Dragon Old Ancestor, the four forces most likely wouldn't dare to invade. Apart from the many women guarding Su Jing, Yi Chun brought the others out of the secret realm. I'll leave this place to you. On this day, after Yi Chun finished handing over some matters, he tore open the space and headed in the direction of South River region. The news of Yi Chun becoming a life and death king had already reached the South River region, the Windy Nation, and the Yi family and Sky Cloud Martial School. However, the people of Yi family and Sky Cloud sect had been waiting for Yi Chun to return. Xiao Xiao, when do you think Big Brother will return? On a small mountain peak not far from Yi family, a young man and a young woman gazed into the distance, their eyes full of expectation. The young man and the young woman were both about 14 or 15 years old. The young man somewhat resembled Yi Chun, delicate and handsome. The young woman had snow-white skin, bright eyes, and white teeth. At this moment, the young man turned his head and said to the young woman, sitting on the treetop. The young woman grumbled, "You ask me? Who should I ask? Big Brother certainly doesn't miss us. Otherwise, why would he not return for so long?" Xiao Xiao, Xiao Xian. Right at this moment, the space twisted and a figure walked out. Wearing blue clothes and black hair, he wore a smile on his face. Big Brother. The young man and young woman turned around, their faces full of surprise. The young man and young woman were indeed Yi Chen's younger siblings, Yi Xian and Yi Xiao Xiao. However, when Yi Chen left the continent, they were only 10 years old. Now, they were already 14 or 15 years old. They had too many concerns for Yi Chen. Although they were no longer young, they still threw themselves into Yi Chen's embrace and tightly hugged him. Caressing his younger siblings' heads, Yi Chen sighed with emotion. In the blink of an eye, his younger siblings had grown up. He remembered that when he crossed over to Elysium, he was only 14 years old, the same age as them. At this moment, Yi Chen's expression was a bit absent-minded, feeling that time had truly passed very quickly. Big Brother, you haven't changed a bit. Yi Xiao Xiao raised her charming face and looked at Yi Chen with a strange expression. Yi Chen's appearance had long since stagnated at the age of 20. Now that he had broken through to life and death realm, it was normal for his appearance to remain unchanged for hundreds of years. Standing next to Yi Xian and Yi Xiao Xiao, he was only a few years older than them. However, Yi Chen's eyes no longer had the childishness of youth, but contained a faint dignity and unswerving determination. Big Brother is a life and death realm warrior. It is normal for you to not change your appearance. Yi Xian sniffled. While I was not here, did you guys slack off? Letting go of the two, Yi Chun took a step back and looked at the two. Their cultivation was not bad. They were only 14 or 15 years old, but they had already reached the early clasping Yuan realm. When Yi Chun was 14 or 15 years old, he had only reached the condensing reality realm. Of course, Yi Chun was not surprised at all. Not long after the two were born, they had already touched the most powerful dragon Fountain Chi that he had obtained from the hidden dragon ancient city. Added with his support, the Yi family basically did not lack anything. They could get whatever they wanted, which was not any weaker than a rank 5 martial institution. With so many advantages, it was normal for them to reach early clasping Yuan realm at the age of 14. However, Yi Chun understood that cultivation was only the foundation. What truly determined one's talent was still experience and determination. Big Brother, we have been working very hard. Oh, let me see your hard work. Yi Chun had a smile on his face as he asked Yi Xian and Yi Xiao Xiao to show him his sword art. The first one to show her sword art was Yi Xiao Xiao. Although Yi Xiao Xiao was still young, She had already grown into a beauty. After showing her sword art, it was so beautiful that it was very pleasing to the eyes. However, Yi Chen sighed. She still lacked training after all, and her sword art did not have any special features at all. If they were at the same cultivation level, Yi Xiaoxiao might be able to win against her opponent. But if her cultivation was higher than hers, then it would be dangerous. It should be known that martial geniuses were not only unbeatable within the same cultivation, but they could also fight beyond their cultivation and kill people who were way more powerful than them. Yi Xiaoxiao was extremely talented in training, but when it came to battling, she was not even close to being a martial genius. She could only be considered above average. Big brother, how is it? Yi Xiaoxiao looked at Yi Chen with trepidation. Yi Chen didn't want to dampen her enthusiasm, but he also didn't want her to be too optimistic. You still need to practice more. Don't waste your cultivation talent. It's my turn, big brother. Yi Xian couldn't wait to practice his sword art. Seeing Yi Xian's sword art, Yi Chen's eyes lit up. With his eyesight, he could easily see that his brother's sword art was not only incomparably sharp, but also contained killing intent. Each move and each style was endless, and he could vaguely feel that he had already touched the edge of sword intent. The sword chi was restrained and not released, and each step was shocking. You've killed before? Yi Chen asked. Yi Xiaoxiao rushed to answer. Big brother, this little rascal is not obedient at all. He often kills people in the pugilistic world. Half a year ago, he even uprooted a village by himself. Father and mother are both worried about him. The people I kill are all evil. Yi Xian hurried to explain. Yi Chen laughed. Sword arts are meant to be used to kill. I don't blame you. Although you're my brother, I don't want you to grow up in a greenhouse. But you have to remember, when you are in danger, you have to use your brain. You have to judge the situation and act according to your power. You can't act blindly. This is very important. Yi Xian's battle talent had touched Yi Chen's heart a bit. He felt that his brother had the possibility of becoming a powerful warrior. With proper training, he might even reach the life and death realm. But that was under the condition that he had enough experiences and opportunities. All right, let's go home. Waving his big sleeves, the three disappeared from the mountain. When they reappeared, they were already in the Yi family. The news of Yi Chen's return spread like wildfire, and the whole South Ridra region was boiling. How many years had it been? The whole South Ridra region hadn't produced a single life and death realm king. This had caused all the native warriors to walk out of the South Ridra region. They thought that the South Ridra region had been cursed and no longer had the luck to produce a life and death realm king. However, the return of Yi Chen had broken this curse. Yi Chen had been a legend in the South Ridra region in his early years. And now, Yi Chen had become a legend. He had risen from a trash youngster and eventually become a life and death realm king. His life gave people a dreamy feeling. Yi Chen's experience had inspired countless youngsters. Many of the famous young experts had more or less been influenced by Yi Chen. Since Yi Chen could become a powerful warrior, why couldn't they? Even if they couldn't reach Yi Chen's achievements, at least they wouldn't have any regrets. The Yi family of the South Ridra region used to be a rank 9 family. As Yi Chen grew stronger, so did the Yi family. From rank 9 to rank 8 to rank 7, and now it had suddenly jumped to rank 5. Rank 5 Yi family. King family. Once a family reached rank 5, its significance would be extraordinary. King family. This was not an honor ordinary families could enjoy. At this moment, the Yi family had truly become a legendary family. Chapter 928. The Yi family was quite lively today. Not only had a lot of people from the South River Martial School and the Sky Cloud Martial School arrived, but there were also people from other martial schools. The leader of the Murong family, Murong Jishui, has arrived. The headmaster of the Dragon God, Celestial Palace, has arrived. The first ones to arrive were the people who were related to Yi Chen. Of course, they would not come empty-handed. They had brought a huge amount of treasures as gifts. Son-in-law, congratulations on reaching the life and death realm. Congratulations. Murong Jishui was full of smiles. Now that Yi Chen had become a top king warrior, his Murong family would naturally rise. Although he was not a vain person, he was not alone. He still had a huge family that needed his leadership. How could he not be happy about Yi Chen's power? Moreover, he had heard from Yi Chen that his daughter, Murong Qingsheng, was training under the demonic human emperor in the chaotic demon ocean and had a bright future ahead of her. "Uncle, please sit here." Yi Chen arranged a seat for Murong Jishui. "The leader of the Sky Flying Demon Martial School has arrived. The leader of the Fire Spirit Martial School has arrived. The leader of the Extreme Ice Martial School has arrived. The leader of the Heartless Martial School has arrived. The leader of the Sky Falling Martial School has arrived. The leader of the Sunset Martial School has arrived." Besides the floating Mountain Martial School, 6 of the original 7 rank 6 martial schools in the South Ritter region had come to congratulate Yi Chen as well. They were all led by their leaders, walking from far away, not daring to show any disrespect. Accompanying them were geniuses from the same generation as Yi Chen, such as Yin Qihua, Bing Ling, Li Daoxian, and so on. Head disciple, is he Yi Chen? Right next to Li Daoxian was a group of young disciples. When Yi Chen was in the South Ritter region, they were still young and had never seen him in person. Right now, their hearts were beating extremely fast, and they could not help but ask in a low voice. Li Daoxian said, "Haven't you already seen the portrait?" The ones with the most complicated feelings were naturally the peak geniuses of South Ritter region from the same generation as Yi Chen. Although they had already become half-step kings, Yi Chen had become a peak king. The gap between the two was immeasurable, just like the gap between a 5th grade sect and a 9th grade sect. "Brother Li, Brother Yin, Miss Bing, this way please." Yi Chen didn't put on any airs and welcomed them with a smile. The 6 sect leaders and many disciples were overwhelmed by the favor and didn't know what to do. The reputation of the Yi family was too big, and Yi Chen's reputation was like the sun in the sky. Besides the rank 6 martial institutions, the martial institutions below rank 6 did not even have the right to enter the palace. This was not because Yi Chen had set up the ranking system, but because the Yi family was too small at the moment. It was impossible for them to welcome everyone, so only the people under them could do it. Besides the main palace, many of the branches of the Yi family were filled with guests, which made all the servants of the Yi family dumbfounded. The leader of the water ape race, Sun Tai, has arrived. Among the many 6th grade sects that had come, a heavyweight force had finally arrived. "Ha, little brother Yi, I'm late." Sun Tai was no longer a half-step beast king, but a real beast king. He was also the first king-level warrior who had come to congratulate Yi Chen. Beside him were Sun Shaojin, who had already become a half-step beast king, and Wang Snake and Wang Mei. "Big brother." Wang Snake saw Yi Chen, and his eyes turned red. "Sorry, I haven't had the chance to visit you guys." Yi Chen felt a bit sorry. After entering the life and death realm, he had been increasing his power in preparation for the Dragon God Celestial Palace. He was planning to visit the South Shallow Ocean after finishing his business in the Yi family. But he did not expect that Sun Tai had already received the news and brought the 3 over. "I'm the one who is ashamed. Having made a friend like little brother Yi, I couldn't help much." Back then, Sun Tai thought highly of Yi Chen's potential and wanted to use the power of his whole race to help Yi Chen, hoping that Yi Chen would one day become a king warrior and remember the water ape race. However, Yi Chen's progress was too fast, and the water ape race could not help much. Now that Yi Chen was already a peak king warrior, it would be fine as long as the water ape race did not drag him down. Why would he need his help? Yi Chen said, "Senior son, you're treating me like an outsider. My brother and sister have troubled you for a long time and have already received your favor." Sun Tai was also a straightforward person, so he said with a smile, "Since I've come, I naturally can't come empty-handed. Consider this upper grade spirit vein as a congratulatory gift." Saying these words, Sun Tai waved his right hand, and a huge shadow suddenly flew in from outside the Yi family. Many guests were stupefied upon seeing it. It turned out to be a 20 to 30 li long upper grade spirit vein, meandering like a dragon. The boundless yuan qi of spirit stones had been completely sealed by Sun Tai with a special method, not letting even a trace leak out. Senior son, how could Yi Chen not understand what he meant? He was now a life and death king, and he needed spirit veins to arrange a great array to protect Yi family. It was just like the 99 spirit veins of Dragon God Celestial Palace, which could be used to arrange the 99 origin returning great array and become the core of the array, providing energy for other great arrays. Xiaojin, let's go drink. Sun Tai waved his hand and entered the main palace. Thunder Empire's Black Thunder King has arrived. Golden Sand Region's Rakshasa sect leader has arrived. Floating Light Region's 7-Star Pavilion's pavilion leader has arrived. Sun Tai's arrival seemed to be the prelude to the arrival of King Warriors. Soon, another 3 life and death King Warriors arrived. They were the Thunder Empire's Black Thunder King, the leader of Chu Zhongtian's Killing Luo School, and the leader of Edict Prince's 7-Star Pavilion. All 3 of them were life and death King Warriors, and they were not something that Sun Tai, who had just entered the realm, could compete with. The Black Thunder King and the leader of Killing Luo School were both mid-rank King Warriors, while the leader of 7-Star Pavilion was a high-ranking warrior. Following the 3 were Jing Aoshuan, Chu Zhongtian, and Li Xiaoyan. As King Warriors, normal treasures were obviously not something that could be given out. Just like Sun Tai, the 3 brought top-grade spirit veins as gifts. Among them, the Black Thunder King had wanted to kill Murong Qingsheng in the parallel space battlefield because of her identity. This time, other than congratulations, he also wanted to apologize. Therefore, he brought 2 top-grade spirit veins, which was indeed a huge investment. Brother Yi, about last time, the Black Thunder King was a bit embarrassed and nervous. Yi Chen smiled and said, "Let's not talk about the past anymore. Let's go in and drink. I have arranged an independent courtyard for you guys, so no one will disturb you." It was obviously inappropriate for life and death king warriors to sit with normal people. So, Yi Chen had already prepared for this. He arranged for these life and death king warriors and their people to sit in a luxurious courtyard for special treatment. All right, Brother Yi is indeed a generous man. The Black Thunder King let out a breath. Yi Chen's reputation was way too powerful right now, and he was no longer the ant he used to be. Otherwise, he would not have come personally to congratulate and apologize. "Yi Chen, congratulations," Chu Zhongtian said with an indifferent tone. "Yi Chen, I did not expect you to become a life and death king warrior this fast. You have left us so far behind." Jing Aoshuan and Li Xiaoyan both held their fists together as they said emotionally. Yi Chen chuckled and said, "I will be waiting for you." After arranging for people to welcome them into the luxurious courtyard, a light smile appeared on Yi Chen's face. He did not really like banquets before, but Long Bai had told him that it was necessary. Those life and death king warriors would not come empty-handed, so they would most likely send spirit veins as gifts. Therefore, he decided to hold the banquet. It turned out that the banquet was indeed necessary. Before, he was still worried about the spirit veins, but with the way things were going, it would not be a problem anymore. Just top-ranked spirit veins alone, he had already gotten 10 of them. The Dragon God Heaven Palace had given him 5, Sun Tai had given him 1, the Black Thunder King had 2, and the leader of the Killing Demon Martial School and the leader of the 7-Star Pavilion had 1 each. 10 top-ranked spirit veins would be a huge fortune for any rank 5 martial institution, and the price they had to pay was just a banquet. "Husband, will you not want me any more in the future?" In the welcoming group outside of the Yi family's palace, a young couple was talking in a low voice. Of this couple, the man was a disciple of the Yi family, and the woman was not some small figure either. She was the princess of a huge country in the South Ritter region. The Yi family had been like the sun in the sky for the past few years, and there were countless princesses and female disciples from the martial institutions, which made the Yi family the most complicated place in the whole South Ritter region. This disciple had quite a high status in the Yi family, so the princess was a bit worried about her status. How could it be? This disciple was very proud, but he would not neglect his beautiful wife. Really? She blinked her eyes. Seeing the welcoming group, she was shocked. Any guest in the main palace had a higher status than her father, And those life and death king warriors were people that she would not normally have the chance to see. But now, because she was the daughter-in-law of the Yi family, she had the chance to see them. The further they went, the more guests there were. Yi Tianhao and Shen Yuqing were worried. Shen Yuqing said, "If I had known that the banquet would be this big, I would have expanded the Yi family a couple of years ago. Right now, it is almost bursting. Don't worry. Let's squeeze a bit for today. Chen is a life and death king now, so this place is not suitable for the Yi family anymore. They will definitely move to a better place." Yi Tianhao was the happiest person today. Although those guests were trying to befriend him for his son's sake, he did not care. His son was his son, and if his son was strong, his father would be strong too. "Leader Yi, you have a good son." At this moment, a leader of a rank 6 martial institution came over to flatter him. "You flatter me." Yi Tianhao smiled brightly. "The leader of the Sky Martial Region's Sky Sea Martial School has arrived. The leader of the Sky Martial Region's Tantai family has arrived. The leader of the Sky Martial Region's Dugu family has arrived. The leader of the Sky Martial Region's Bai family has arrived." After a while, more life and death king warriors arrived. This time, there were 4 of them. The forces that came this time were even more frightening. The Sky Ocean Martial School was able to do well in the Sky Martial region, which was not something a normal rank 5 martial school could compare with. Tantai, Dugu, and Bai families were among the top 4 families of the true spirit continent. Not to mention the top sects of the South Ridera region, even the top forces of the true spirit continent were huge existences. Hai Wuya and Bai Wuxiwe had also arrived. As for Dantai Mingwe and Dugaju, they did not come. They were probably still comprehending the life and death Tao, and did not have the time to congratulate. The top 4 parties had each gifted an upper-grade spirit vein. Adding them up, Yi Chun had already received 14 upper-grade spirit veins. Chapter 929. Yi Chun, congratulations. The speaker was a beautiful middle-aged woman. Her temperament was ethereal and elegant, and her aura was powerful, far surpassing the other life and death kings who had come with her. This woman was none other than the leader of Tantai family, Moon Empress. Before Xuanho's rise, Moon Empress was the #1 female king of the human race. Her strength was unfathomable, and even when standing next to Yi Chun, she was not the slightest bit weaker. She was clearly a peak king, and not an ordinary one at that. Her strength was at least high stage 4-star, or even peak 4-star. The Moon Empress's presence brings light to the Yi clan. Yi Chun walked over to greet her. Moon Empress sighed. The world is about to descend into chaos. As the first of a young generation to enter life and death realm, perhaps my Tanai family will have to rely on you in the future. Moon Empress had come to congratulate Yi Chun for entering life and death realm. Naturally, she wanted to form a good relationship with Yi Chun. Although her family already had a genius like Dantai Mingwe, there was still a gap between Dantai Mingwe and Yi Chun. Dantai Mingwe could make the Tantai family even more glorious, but the premise was that they could survive this great calamity. Moon Empress must be joking. As he spoke, Yi Chun led the Moon Empress and the others into the luxurious courtyard. Besides the kings of the sects, there were also some solitary kings. Among these kings, Yi Chun had heard of most of them, but there was still a small portion that Yi Chun had never seen or heard of. As the saying goes, those who came were guests. Although Yi Chun didn't know them, he didn't want to leave them out in the cold. At the very least, these people had brought precious gifts and weren't here to cause trouble. Inside the luxurious courtyard, the number of life and death kings kept increasing. It was already close to 20 people. Close to 20 life and death kings in the same courtyard was a rare thing. However, because of Yi Chun's presence, they all came and chatted happily. However, Yi Chun could tell that even among life and death kings, there was a difference in status. Normally, low-level kings would drink with low-level kings, mid-level kings would drink with mid-level kings, and high-level kings would drink with high-level kings. There were 3 peak-level kings, Moon Empress, Dugu family's patriarch, and Bai family's patriarch. These 3 naturally became the center of the crowd. All the life and death kings who could come had come, and those who didn't would not come next year. However, everyone knew that there was one more person who would come. If she didn't come, the whole banquet would be overshadowed. Finally, a voice sounded. The leader of the Tianwu region's Xian sect has arrived. It's here. Everyone held their breaths and looked out of the hall. Xianho, who was dressed in white and had long black hair like a waterfall, walked over with Yin Fengfeng, who was dressed in blue and had elegant facial features. Senior Yin. Yichun welcomed him with a smile. Yin Fengfeng chuckled. Yichun, my master, and I have come so late to borrow top-rank spirit veins for you. We have brought 9 top-rank spirit veins in total. 9 top-rank spirit veins? Yichun was surprised and touched at the same time. Top-rank spirit veins were not cabbages, and were usually in the hands of rank 5 martial institutions. But rank 5 martial institutions also needed top-rank spirit veins for great formations, and extra ones would have to be provided for their disciples to train. Therefore, it would be hard for them to have extra. Therefore, those king-level martial institutions had already shown their sincerity by giving out 1 top-rank spirit vein. Since the Black Thunder King had some conflicts with Yi Chun and Murong Qingsheng, he had paid a lot to give them 1 more. He had never expected that Xianho would give out 9 at once, and even go around to borrow them. Thank you, Senior Yin, for such a big gift. Yi Chun said gratefully. They're just some external things. Don't think too much of them. Xianho had noticed the Moon Queen in the luxurious yard, so she said to Yi Chun, I will go and meet up with the Moon Queen. You go on with your business. Yi Chun was indeed very busy. This banquet was held for him, so he had to show up in person. Otherwise, why would people come and congratulate him? Why would they give him so many valuable treasures? It was all just to see him in person. Normally, most of the martial geniuses would hold a banquet when they reached the life and death realm. The first reason was to see who would be on their side, and the second was to show off their generosity. After being busy for a long time, Yi Chun finally had the chance to go to the luxurious yard and meet up with the life and death realm warriors. Little brother Yi, we have been waiting for you. Sun Tai and the 2 early-rank beast kings were having a great time drinking. Seeing Yi Chun walking over, they called out. Yi Chun walked over. Yi Chun, I am Pangolin King, and this is my friend Hummingbird King. Of the 2 demon monarchs drinking with Sun Tai, one was a pangolin and the other was a hummingbird. The pangolin monarch was short, but he wasn't thin at all. He had a wide back, while the hummingbird monarch was an ordinary-looking woman with an exquisite figure. Sorry for the poor reception. I hope you 2 don't mind. Yi Chun cupped his fists and said apologetically, Not at all. Being able to meet one of the top geniuses from the ancient times until now, I, Hummingbird King, am already very satisfied. Hummingbird King flattered. After exchanging some pleasantries with each of the life and death kings, Yi Chun arrived at the central circle, where all the peak kings were present. Xianho, Moon Queen, Dugu family leader, and by family leader were present. The others would at most say a few words, not daring to sit together with them. Sister Yin, your insight is much better than mine. How come I didn't notice such a genius with potential back then? Seeing Yi Chun, Moon Queen Ti Xianho, and Yin Qingxian. Yin Qingxian smiled. Your family already has a genius. If you place your attention on other geniuses, you won't look greedy. Why would geniuses be afraid of having too many? Moon Queen would be lying if she said she didn't regret it. Sometimes, she would think how great it would be if the little girl Mingyue and Yi Chun could be together. Yi Chun poured wine and fruits for the 4, then raised his cup and said, Thank you all for coming. Yi Chun is honored. I hope we can get along well in the future, and no unpleasant things will happen. Definitely. The 4 stood up and raised their cups. It was late at night, and the guests had already left. On the roof of the main palace, a bright moon was shining in the sky, and 2 figures were standing side by side. This banquet has created a lot of momentum for you. It's easy to see that Tantai family, Dugu family, and by family are all willing to get close to you. With the support of the 3 families, you will truly have the right to speak in Elysium. Even a titled monarch will not provoke you. White clothes fluttering in the wind, Xianho raised her head to look at the bright moon and said. Yi Chun crossed his hand behind his back and said, Actually, what they care about is my strength. Since I have strength, they naturally don't want to offend me. If I can't break through for a long time, who knows what they will think? That's natural. No matter what beautiful words are used to describe it, the essence of this world is the survival of the fittest. Outside of Elysium, it's still the same. Therefore, you can't stop right now until you reach the peak. Shinho couldn't see through Yi-chun at all. Yi-chun was like a dense fog, becoming more and more unfathomable. It was just like his speed of improvement, which was simply too shocking. In this era, there could be a genius comparable to the ancient era. Who would have thought that? Even Shinho didn't expect it. She was a bit worried about Yi-chun. The more amazing a genius was, the more things they would encounter. Ordinary people lived an ordinary life, but the life of a genius was always full of ups and downs. The two chatted all the way until dawn. When the sky started to brighten, Shinho left with Yin Fengfeng, slowly letting out a breath. Yi-chun looked at the horizon and grabbed at the air, as if he wanted to grab the sun that had yet to rise. 24 upper-grade spirit veins. This was the harvest of a banquet. Dragon God, Celestial Palace, only had 17 upper-grade spirit veins. Of course, upper-grade spirit veins also had different quality. Most of the upper-grade spirit veins Yi-chun had obtained were low-grade ones, and a few were mid-grade ones. On the other hand, Dragon God Celestial Palace had a super-grade upper-grade spirit vein and several upper-grade ones. Comparing the two, Yi-chun's upper-grade spirit veins seemed to be more numerous, but the overall effect was not as good as that of Dragon God Celestial Palace. Apart from the upper-grade spirit veins, Yi-chun had also obtained 32 mid-grade spirit veins, which were all gifted by 6th-grade sections. Not to mention ordinary 6th-grade sects. For some powerful 6th-grade sects, gifting a mid-grade spirit vein was nothing. Even if they didn't have a good relationship with the Yi family, they could at least show their sincerity. With 24 upper-grade spirit veins and 32 mid-grade spirit veins, as well as the 3 mid-grade spirit veins and some lower-grade spirit veins of the Yi family, they could barely arrange the 99 origin return grade array. However, even though they had enough spirit veins, they still hadn't found a good sect. The current Yi family was already a 5th-grade sect. They couldn't just casually find a place and build some buildings. They had to choose a place with good geomancy and environment. This aspect was very particular. After all, humans didn't live in an empty space. They needed to interact with the outside world. In the whole of Elysium, there would always be barren hills and unruly rivers, as well as heavenly paradises. It was just like an ordinary person's body. There were healthy parts and weak parts. With his soul eyes, it was too easy for Yi-chun to choose a good place. 3 days later, the location of the Yi family's construction had been confirmed. It would be on the left side of the center of the South River region. It looked normal, but Yi-chun had seen through the whole South River region. He could vaguely sense that it would be the perfect place for a dragon to raise its head. Now that the location had been found, the next step would be to find the mountains. Xuanho's mysterious martial school didn't have that many mountains. It was Shinho who had used her power to move them over from other places. A lot of king warriors would do the same thing. Of course, it would be the northern region. Most of the northern region was controlled by the barbarian race, so the mountains there were the most primitive, and most of the wild mountains have been preserved there. Yi-chun had moved 27 mountains in one go. Besides the outer 18 mountains, the inner 9 mountains each had 9 spirit veins buried under them. The one in the center had the best top-grade spirit veins. Therefore, after setting up the 99 origin return grade array, the center mountain would become the place with the densest yuan qi, which would be the core of the Yi family. Chapter 9:30. The 99 origin return great formation was a secret of the Dragon God Celestial Palace. When a Dragon King had given the Golden Dragon Ball to Yi-chun, he had also imparted it to him. Fortunately, it had been imparted early. Otherwise, it would be impossible for Yi-chun to comprehend the formation in such a short time. After all, formations were different from martial arts. One had to have a certain foundation. Without a solid foundation, one would be helpless no matter how talented one was. Rise! On the central peak, Yi-chun spread his hands and let out a low roar. Following the roar, the veins under the 27 mountains began to tremble. In the next instant, 81 beams of spiritual chi were fired into the sky and into the clouds. The spirit chi light pillar was hundreds of meters thick and contained a vast amount of yuan chi from the spirit stones. Without exaggeration, if one of the spirit chi light pillars were to attack a city, it would definitely be flattened, and there would be no chance of survival at all. Because right then, Yi Chun had already activated all of the spirit chi in the spirit vein. The spirit chi light column contained a shocking amount of spirit chi, and Yi Chun would naturally not let it go. He waved both of his hands in the air, and those 81 spirit chi light columns shot up into the sky like huge dragons, drawing beautiful arcs in the air as they attacked toward Yi Chun, who was on the ground. Just as the spirit chi light pillars were about to hit Yi Chun did not panic. He put his hands together and, with an unimaginable speed, he formed 9 seals in one breath. After the seals were completed, the spirit chi light pillars became gentle and danced around Yi Chun. If one were to look from far away, they would be able to see 8,100-meter thick rainbows circling around Yi Chun, forming a huge light sphere. The color of the sphere was mottled, leaning toward a milky yellow color. Next is the most important step. No matter what kind of array formation was set up, one had to carve out the veins of the array formation. As for the target of carving, it depended on the environment. It could be in the water, on the ground, or even in the void. Although the 9x9 grand array could be carved in the void, it was best to carve it on the ground. The 9-9 return to origin great array had already been simulated thousands of times in Yi Chun's mind. Fortunately, Yi Chun's soul was 10 times stronger than ordinary life and death kings. Otherwise, simulating such a complicated array in his mind would be extremely taxing. If it were other life and death kings, they would have to comprehend the array step by step, and wouldn't be able to simulate it in their mind without any scruples. Fine. Exhaling, Yi Chun waved his right hand. One of the pillars of spiritual energy suddenly left the ball of light and spread rapidly along the surface of the ground, like a needle being threaded. Soon after, the second, third, fourth, a total of 8 pillars of spiritual energy spread out with Yi Chun as the center. Wherever they passed, they left glowing marks on the ground. These marks flickered and didn't cause any damage to the surroundings. However, they caused the yuan chi of the heaven and earth to become chaotic. These 9 glowing marks formed a circle with Yi Chun as the center. The 9 mountains around Yi Chun's feet were naturally enveloped by this circle. Some of the plants on the mountains were nourished by the dense spiritual energy and were growing crazily. Some of them even broke away from the limits of ordinary plants and turned into spirit grasses or spirit trees. For a moment, specks of spiritual light flickered, and a rain of flowers fluttered in the air. The scene looked like a paradise on earth. This was not the end. The marks left behind by the 9 pillars of spiritual energy were merely the framework of the 9x9 grand array. With this framework as the foundation, many more complicated marks would need to be carved. These marks would connect with each other and influence each other, forming an endless cycle. Only then would the 9x9 grand array be completed. 1 day passed, and the circle was filled with many marks. 3 days passed, and the circle was filled with a trace of profoundness. 9 days passed, and the circle was completely formed by nature, filled with innate profoundness. From high up in the sky, this circle that was filled with brand lines was incomparably huge. It completely encircled the 9 mountain peaks. The brand lines inside were either straight lines or curved lines. They formed symbols or entangled with each other. Within the circle, they formed countless small circles, and within the small circles, there was no end to them. The spiritual chi within the spirit vein, with the marks as the hub, emitted astonishing spiritual chi fluctuations. Normally, the fluctuations would be diluted and fused with the heaven and earth. However, with the restriction of a 9x9 grand array, the moment the spiritual chi reached the sky, it was immediately blocked by an incorporeal barrier, unable to be released. The range of the 9x9 grand array was the shape of a sphere. From the sky to the ground, there were no blind spots. Even the void was affected by an incorporeal barrier. Ordinary life and death kings couldn't even dream of breaking through space and entering the Great Array. Even a powerful titled monarch would be obstructed for a while. At this point, the 9x9 Grand Array was completed. Once the formation was complete, the visible lines of the imprints immediately turned invisible. Looking at it with the naked eye, one would not be able to see the slightest trace of it. One could only see the thin mist-like spiritual energy floating in the air, forming spiritual clouds. Grabbing at the air, Yi Chun said inwardly, "Sure enough, it can't compare to Dragon God Celestial Palace's 9x9 Grand Array. The density of the heaven and earth yuan qi here is roughly 7 times that of the outside world. 9x9 Grand Array's extreme effect was 9 times the density of the outside world's yuan qi. 1 day of cultivation was equivalent to 9 days of bitter cultivation in the outside world. On the other hand, Yi family's 9x9 Grand Array allowed 1 day of cultivation to be equivalent to 7 days of bitter cultivation. The difference wasn't big, but it wasn't small either. After all, the lifespan of martial artists was extremely long. 1 or 2 days might not make a difference, but 10 or 20 years would be a huge difference. One 9x9 Grand Array is not enough. I have to arrange other arrays. The Mountain Guarding Great Array had both offense and defense. If one were to blindly defend, they would eventually fall into a disadvantage. Moreover, the 9x9 Grand Array's main function was to seal the heaven and earth yuan qi and absorb it from the outside world. In terms of defense, it was only an additional effect. Fortunately, Yi Chun knew quite a few arrays. With the array manuals left by Fire Emperor and some sword array arrangements in Battle King's memories, he didn't have to worry about not having enough arrays to use. Water and Earth Interlocking Great Array. This was one of the defensive arrays in the Fire Emperor's array manuals, and its grade was Supreme Grade. Once the array was completed, it would condense numerous illusory mountains and rivers to protect the Yi family when attacked from the outside world. When the enemy fell into the Great Array, their speed would be greatly reduced. It would be like entering a world of flood and collapsing mountains. Being able to exert 70 to 80% of one's strength would already be considered pretty good. The Water and Earth Interlocking Great Array completely covered the 27 mountains, but its defensive range was far beyond that. When attacked, it would expand by 10 times, and the enemy would be sucked into it. The Water and Earth Interlocking Great Array was a defensive array. Next, Yi Chun arranged another offensive array. This array also came from Fire Emperor, and it was called the Sky Burning Fire Dragon Array. It was also a supreme grade. The attacking range of the Sky Burning Fire Dragon Array was far beyond the defensive range of the Water and Earth Interlocking Great Array. Once it was activated, it would condense fire dragons that could burn the sky. They would jump out of the Great Array and attack the enemy. Even if the enemy was 1,000 miles away, they would not be able to escape the pursuit of the fire dragons. In addition, the Sky Burning Fire Dragon Array was controllable. The people inside the array could control the fire dragons and attack at will. Under normal circumstances, one person could control one fire dragon. Unless it was a genius like Yi Chun who could multitask, or even multitask, he could control 2 or 3 fire dragons to attack the enemy at the same time. After setting up the Water and Earth Interlocking Great Array and the Sky Burning Fire Dragon Array, Yi Chun focused on the last offensive Great Array. This offensive Great Array came from the Battle Emperor's memory. It was called the Immortal Sword Chi Great Array. Back in the days, the Immortal Sword Martial School in the Bloodhaven Land also had the Immortal Sword Chi Great Array. Unfortunately, the Battle Emperor had fallen and the Immortal Sword sect had been taken over by the demonic martial school. Otherwise, with just the Immortal Sword Chi Great Array, the surrounding rank 6 martial schools would not dare to bully the Zhang Tian martial school. Yi Chun did not set up the Immortal Sword Chi Great Array outside. Instead, he set it up at the edge of the 9 mountains, which was very close to the 9-9 return to Origin Great Array. This way, with the natural power of the 9-9 return to Origin Great Array, the power of the Immortal Sword Chi Great Array would definitely be maximized. Chi 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 Chi. The power of the Immortal Sword Chi Great Array was extremely powerful. Although it was still an extreme rank mid-rank array, it was one of the most horrifying attacking arrays. During the process of setting up the array, the natural spirit chi would constantly compress and condense into beams of white sword chi, shooting out in all directions. If it were not for the fact that Yi Chun had been paying close attention, the surrounding 18 mountains would have been sliced into pieces by these white sword chi. Of course, this was because the Immortal Sword Chi Great Array hadn't been completely set up yet. After being set up, it wouldn't be activated easily. It would only be activated when being attacked. Moreover, it would lock onto the life aura of the attacker, and wouldn't stop until the attacker was dead. Otherwise, Yichen wouldn't have arranged it here. After spending 10 days, the Immortal Sword Chi Great Array was also completed. Currently, with the 9-9 Return to Origin Great Array and the Immortal Sword Chi Great Array on the inside, and the Fire Dragon Sky Burning Great Array and the Water and Earth Chain Great Array on the outside, Yi family had a total of 4 Great Arrays protecting it. Although it might not be as safe as Dragon God Celestial Palace, it would at least be able to hold out for a period of time. However, Yi Chen knew that no matter how powerful the Great Arrays were, they were only external objects. Without the protection of life and death kings, no matter how many Great Arrays there were, they would still be broken. Dragon God Celestial Palace's arrays were extremely powerful, but without Senior Dragon King, they were still invaded by the 4 great powers. If one thought that they would be safe with the protection of the great arrays, then they would be gravely mistaken. Let's set up another mountain gate and arrange a flight restriction array. The mountain gate was the entrance of a power, so it could not be careless. Using white jade, Yi Chun created a huge mountain gate. The mountain gate was 12 zhang tall and 15 zhang wide, looking like a memorial arch. On the mountain gate, Yi Chun used the Immortal Sword Intent to carve 2 large characters, Yi family. He then arranged some firm restrictions on the mountain gate to prevent it from being damaged or easily destroyed. At the same time, with the mountain gate as the center, Yi Chun arranged a flight restriction array within 1,000 meters. Anyone under life and death realm would not be able to fly inside the array. They could only walk on the ground. Even life and death kings would face some restrictions and be unable to fly high enough to fly over the mountain gate. Chapter 9:31. After everything was done, a satisfied smile appeared on Yi Chen's face. All of a sudden, he thought of something. The plant ring on his left hand shone with a dim light, and a huge spirit tree appeared out of thin air. It was indeed the top-ranked spirit tree, the fire pear tree. It was more than 3,000 years old, and it was hundreds of meters tall. Its crown covered a radius of 1 mile, which was huge in the eyes of normal people. It could almost cover a small village. This fire pear tree would not be able to absorb any nutrients from the plant ring. It would only be able to keep the spirit chi from declining. Why don't I plant it on the Spirit Cloud Mountain? The Spirit Cloud Mountain was the most central mountain. Since it was the core of the 9-9 original Great Spell, the natural spirit chi there was extremely rich, condensing into countless spirit clouds floating around the mountain. Therefore, Yi Chun had named it the Spirit Cloud Mountain. Originally, Yi Chun was planning to make the Spirit Cloud Mountain the main mountain of the Yi family and let all the direct members of the family live there. This way, their training speed would be extremely fast. Unless they ran into a bottleneck, they would be able to increase their cultivation very quickly. But training too fast was not a good thing either, since the foundation would not be solid enough. The fire pear tree was a top-ranked spirit tree, which was extremely useful for warriors below the life and death realm. Dozens of fire pears would be equivalent to a sea of soul's realm spirit crystal stone, which would be extremely useful for training the spirit body. If they could take root on the Spirit Cloud Mountain, the fire pear tree would definitely be able to increase its power. Moreover, Yi Chen had his own plan. He wanted to turn the Spirit Cloud Mountain into the holy land of the Yi family, since the natural spirit chi there was the densest. Those who contributed to the Yi family would be able to train there for a few days based on their contributions. Those who contributed a lot would even be rewarded with a fire pear tree, which could be used to increase the spirit body's power. The mountain had been moved here, and the spell had been set up. Next, it was time to officially build the Yi family. This was something that Yi Chun did not need to worry about. Yi Tianhao, Shun Yuqing, and the higher-ups of the Yi clan were dumbfounded when they saw the 27 mountains arranged in an orderly manner. It was not that South Ridra region did not have good mountains, but compared to the mountains in the northern regions, they were clearly lacking. Moreover, the mountains that Yi Chun had moved from the northern regions had all been carefully selected. Some were tall and precipitous, some had majestic aura, some had strange rocks, and some had dense waterfalls. 27 mountains, each with their own unique characteristics. Moreover, they carried the unique wild aura of the northern regions, displaying their original style. Standing in the mountains, one would unconsciously open their mind and feel a lofty aspiration rising into the sky. Chenur, is there anything special about this mountain gate? Yi Qianhao couldn't help but ask when he sensed that the mountain gate contained an ancient and immortal aura. Yi Chan said, the materials used to build the mountain gate are not that precious. However, I have added a couple of seals on it, making it very sturdy and hard to destroy. Besides that, the 2 words Yi Clan contain my immortal sword intent, which can strengthen the mountain gate and protect it from wind and rain, as well as the corrosion of time. Father, mother, everyone can fly in and give it a try. Yi Chen wanted to see the effect of the Forbidden Space formation. After all, it was his first time setting up an official formation. Yi Tianhao, Shun Yuqing, and the rest did not doubt him at all. Hearing Yi Chen's words, there must be something special about the mountain gate. They all performed their movement arts and flew over. Just as everyone flew within 1,000 meters of the mountain gate, they all fell down uncontrollably. They wanted to fly again, but they couldn't do it no matter what. Forbidden Space Formation. Shen Yuqing's eyes brightened. Yi Chun smiled and said, anyone who wants to enter the Yi clan has to pass through here. Whether they want it or not, they can only get down and walk, which saves them a lot of trouble. In order to let the Yi clan's higher-ups know what kind of formations the Yi clan had, Yi Chun first activated the water and earth interlocking formation. As soon as the water and earth interlocking formation was activated, the surrounding scenery immediately changed drastically. Shadows of mountains were floating in the air, and in between the shadows of the mountains, there were dark green shadows of the Milky Way. Looking from afar, these shadows of mountains looked like huge armor plates, and the Milky Way shadows were the threads that connected the armor plates together. The outer area of the Yi clan and the sky above the Yi clan seemed to be wearing a semicircular armor, which protected the Yi clan well. This is the top-grade medium defensive formation, water and fire interlocking formation. This is the top-grade medium offensive formation, sky-burning fire dragon great formation. One after another, thousands of meters long fire dragons shot out, burning the heavens. Even from far away, Yi Tianhao, Shun Yuqing, and the rest could feel the scorching heat. It wasn't hard to imagine that no one under life and death realm would be able to resist the fire dragons. Even ordinary life and death kings wouldn't dare to be hit by them. Good. With the protection of these 2 great formations, it won't be a dream for Yi clan to continue for thousands of years. Yi Tianhao was in high spirits. In Yi Chen's generation, Yi clan had basically enjoyed all the glory it could. However, compared to other super clans, Yi clan's only shortcoming was its lack of foundation. It only had a few hundred years of history, which was far from comparable to those ancient clans that had existed for thousands of years. Father, there's an even more powerful immortal sword, Qi, great formation inside. It can easily kill low-step kings, and even mid-step kings would most likely fall if they charged in alone. The immortal sword, Qi, great formation, was Yi clan's last line of defense. Yi Chun didn't think that he could block high-step kings with just a few formations. For Yi Chun, these formations were mainly used to stall for time. The 2 great formations outside needed some time to be broken, and the immortal sword Qi great formation and 9-9 return to origin great formation also needed some time to be broken. Adding the 2 formations together would buy a lot of time. If Yi Chun were far away, he would have plenty of time to rush back. Witnessing the might of the immortal sword Chi Great Formation, Yi Clan's members looked forward to Yi Clan's future even more. They believed that as long as Yi Chun continued to improve, Yi Clan would certainly become more and more powerful. One day, they might even become an Overlord-level power that could shake the entire true spirit world with a stomp of their feet. Yi Clan's ancestors probably never imagined that our Yi Clan would become a fifth-grade family and even have a defensive great formation protecting our descendants. Yi Tianhao was somewhat absent-minded. Yi Clan's grand construction project began, and Yi Chen also began to cultivate bitterly. The vibrational sword art's second style, Heaven-Inflicted Sword, had long since been completed. However, the heaven-shattering sword art's second style, Orbital Slaughter, was still in its embryonic form. If he could comprehend it successfully with its characteristics, even the protective Jin Yuan of titled monarchs would not be able to withstand a single blow. Of course, this didn't mean that studying Orbital Slaughter would allow one to contend against titled monarchs. It could only threaten them. After all, the other party wasn't a block of wood that could be easily killed. Orbital Slaughter had a very high requirement for the space profound. Therefore, in the past few days, Yi Chun had been studying Emperor 4 Extreme Space Profound while deducing Orbital Slaughter. As a fifth-grade family, Yi Clan couldn't just build a few buildings like before. According to Yi Tianhao's plan, he planned to build buildings on all 27 peaks. Along the flat areas of the peaks, he would also construct steps. This was a huge project. It should be known that the smallest of these 27 peaks was several thousand meters tall, occupying a dozen li. The largest was Spirit Cloud Peak, more than 9,000 meters tall, occupying 100 li. The entire Yi Clan's area exceeded 500 li. The project was huge, and the number of craftsmen was indispensable. In order to complete the Yi Clan's construction as soon as possible, Yi Tianhao recruited 100,000 craftsmen in one go. Yi Clan's disciples couldn't stay idle either, and each of them had to lead their craftsmen to work. Just as Yi Clan's construction was going on, Blood Sky Continent's Eternal Sky sect encountered a crisis. 4 life and death kings arrived at Eternal Sky sect. Li Zhongfeng, I know that the senior who had been protecting Eternal Sky sect for 500 years is no longer here. Right now, besides Yi Chun, you have no other ace up your sleeve. The one who spoke was a minotaur with dark red skin. His body was huge, and even his calves were a couple of stories tall. Standing there, he looked like a mountain giant. He was none other than the leader of one of the top 10 beast martial schools, the Iron Hoof Beast School, the Iron Hoof Beast King. No matter how powerful Yi Chun is, he is only one person, and there are 4 of us here. The elder with white hair next to the Iron Hoof Beast King said. Li Zhongfeng sensed that something was not right. In fact, he did not even know if the king warrior who had been protecting Eternal Sky Sect was still here or not. In the past 500 years, besides the one time, 300 years ago, he had never shown up again. Trying to take a deep breath, Li Zhongfeng tried his best to calm himself down and said, "Why have you 4 come to my Eternal Sky Sect?" Savage Stone, the elder with white hair, said. Savage Stone? Li Zhongfeng frowned. I have never heard of it. Perhaps you might have heard of it by another name. Lover's Stone. Impossible, Li Zhongfeng yelled. The Lover's Stone was given by our ancestors as a token of love to the first-generation leader of the Li family. How could it be the Savage Stone? Your Li family has passed down the Lover's Stone from generation to generation. Do you really think that it is just a token of love? No one would believe it if you tell others. The elder knew about the Lover's Stone very well. Regardless of whether it is the Savage Stone or not, hand it over now. Otherwise, I will wipe out the entire Zhang Tian martial school. The one who threatened was a middle-aged man with a small head and a pair of beast-like yellow pupils. Li Zhongfeng took a step back. Until now, he had also started to suspect that the Lover's Stone was not that simple. But asking him to hand it over just like that was obviously against the first-generation leader's will. Leader, leave this to me. Right then, Yi Chen, who had been in closed-up training, walked out. This was the spirit consciousness that he had left behind. Seeing Yi Chun come out, the Iron Hoof Beast King's expression changed as he yelled, Yi Chun, This has nothing to do with you. As long as he hands over the lover's stone, we will leave immediately. Otherwise, no one will be able to save the Zhang Tian martial school. Oh, are you threatening me? Or do you think that I cannot destroy the Iron Hoof Beast martial school? Yi Chun held the evil, shattering sword in his hand as he squinted his eyes. The elder with white hair laughed. A spirit consciousness body dares to be so arrogant. There are 4 of us here, and any one of us is more powerful than your spirit consciousness body. Right now, we're going to destroy the Zhang Tian martial school, and you can only watch. The elder with white hair had the highest power. He was obviously a top king warrior. As a top king warrior, not to mention the fact that Yi Chun was just a spirit consciousness body, even if his real body came, he would not be afraid. This was the pride of a top king warrior. Chapter 9:32. You guys can try. Naturally, Yi Chun was quite afraid of the white-haired elder. Among the 4 of them, he was the most powerful one. He was about mid-rank 4-star warrior, and he himself was not a nobody either. He was the great master of the Terminator Demon Martial School in the Blood Sky Land, the Demon King. Apart from the white-haired elder, the other 3 were not weak. The Iron Hoof Demonic King was at the peak of 3 stars. The middle-aged man with a small head was called the Silver Leopard King, who was also at the peak of 3 stars. And the woman with thin lips who had been silent all this time was the Mantis Queen, the leader of the Blood Mantis sect, one of the top 10 demonic sects of the Blood Sky continent. Her battle power was at the peak of 3 stars. The Silver Leopard King walked out and said, "If your real body was here, I might be a bit wary, but you're only a consciousness avatar. Do you think you can overturn the world? I can't overturn the world, but I can beat you." The consciousness avatar had 1/3 of Yi Chun's power. Although it wasn't 4 stars, it was still unbeatable within 3 stars. Since you're so confident, I, the Silver Leopard King, will exchange a few moves. The Silver Leopard King didn't want to completely anger Yi Chun. Yi Chun's consciousness avatar wasn't scary, but his real body was too frightening. He was obviously a top king. Even the Demon King might not be able to suppress him. Roar. The Silver Leopard King was a demi-beast king with a silver leopard bloodline. With a roar, a silver leopard appeared behind him. The leopard also roared and merged into the Silver Leopard King's body. In the next second, the Silver Leopard King turned into a half-human, half-beast leopard man. When beasts couldn't completely transform, they would also appear as half-human, half-beast beastmen. However, beastmen's battle power wasn't high. After all, they couldn't even transform, so how strong could they be? Of course, there were some powerful beast kings that liked to appear as beastmen. For example, the Iron Hoof Demon King was a minotaur. This was a matter of aesthetics. However, the beastman form of a demonic beast was completely different from a demonic beast. For a demonic beast, the beastman form was their strongest combat power. It contained the wild power of a demonic beast, as well as the advantages of a human. It was equivalent to combining the advantages of both sides, perfectly fusing them together. Chi, the Silver Leopard King, in its leopard man form, was unimaginably fast. With a flash of silver light, it brushed past Yi Chun. Almost at the same time, countless sparks flew in front of Yi Chun. The sound of metal exploding resounded through the sky, and the space was torn into pieces. He blocked it? Several li behind Yi Chun, the Silver Leopard King turned his head, his eyes filled with astonishment. He did not sense when Yi Chun pulled out his sword or when he used his sword to block his claw attack. He had thought that even if he could not hurt Yi Chun with his first attack, he would at least make Yi Chun look miserable and reveal more flaws. The weakness of the consciousness avatar could not be concealed, and that was that it was easy to collapse. He blocked it. That scene just now had happened too quickly. The Iron Hoof Beast King and the Mantis Queen did not even have time to react. The Silver Leopard King's attack speed was within their expectations, but Yi Chun's blocking speed was completely unexpected. Moreover, Yi Chun's expression did not change at all. It was as if the Silver Leopard King's quick attack was very ordinary to him, not worthy of any fluctuation in his mood. A bit tricky. The Demon Centipede King could see some signs and could not help but frown. Sky ripping cloud expelling claw. The Silver Leopard King used his killing move. This move was a bit strange. It was not a direct attack, but rather a spiraling explosion of Zhen Yuan containing demonic qi. The spiraling airflow was incomparably majestic. Even if it was Yi Chun, without using space profound movement skills, he would find it hard to dodge. However, he could see that this spiraling airflow did not have much killing power and could not break through his protective Zhen Yuan at all. It seemed to have some other use. Boom! The airflow exploded, and Yi Chen's protective Zhen Yuan warped, his figure faintly swaying. The dazzling silver claw light rapidly pierced over, as if there was no resistance at all. It seemed to be wandering between resistance and non-resistance, making this claw impossible to dodge. So that's how it is. A thought flashed through his mind as he realized how powerful this attack of the Silver Leopard King was. In the beginning, that spiral chi flow was not used to attack, but to collide with his protective Zhen Yuan. Once Zhen Yuan and Zhen Yuan collided, a gap would appear, and the Silver Leopard King's next claw attack would attack through this gap, which would not be hindered by the two kinds of Zhen Yuan. If Yi Chun were a life and death king with strength similar to the Silver Leopard King, he might really be heavily injured by this move without knowing the opponent's strength. Unfortunately, the Silver Leopard King's opponent was Yi Chun, even if it was only a consciousness avatar of Yi Chun. Buzz! Yi Chun's Zhen Yuan vibrated as he slashed out. Pum! The instant the silver claw light was about to hit Yi Chun, it suddenly shattered. The extremely powerful vibration not only dissipated the chaotic airflow, but also turned the shattered silver claw light into specks of silver light, dissipating into nothingness. The so-called flaw was something Yi Chun could easily eliminate. Unless the Silver Leopard King's killing move was 2 or 3 times faster, it could threaten him. As the silver claw light shattered, Yi Chun's figure suddenly moved. The evil shattering sword streaked across the sky, leaving behind a golden scar as it heavily slashed at the Silver Leopard King. Heaven-cutting sword. Yi Chun's movement and sword speed were too fast. Even the Silver Leopard King, who had always prided himself on his speed, felt that he couldn't evade this sword. If he tried, he would just die. I don't believe this sword of yours is that powerful. The Silver Leopard King coldly snorted and raised his right claw. Clang! Sparks flew everywhere as the Silver Leopard King's pupils suddenly enlarged. His Zhen Yuan protective layer shattered with a puff. Spurting out a mouthful of blood, the Silver Leopard King's entire body was sent flying. While flying, his body couldn't help but shake rapidly, causing it to turn illusory. Vibration power. The same vibration power as the demonic blade arts. The image of the demonic blade king flashed in the Silver Leopard King's mind. He had exchanged blows with the demonic blade king before. The latter's demonic blade arts could be said to be invincible in close combat. He had suffered losses more than once or twice, and every time he met the latter, he would feel extremely nervous. He originally thought that the demonic blade arts were unique, but unexpectedly, Yi Chun was also proficient in vibration power. Moreover, it was not inferior to the demonic blade king's demonic blade arts. The Silver Leopard King's body fiercely smashed into a mountain near the Eternal Sky sect. The mountain trembled slightly, and the next moment, the huge mountain was shattered into millions of pieces. This was the huge destructive power transmitted from the vibration power inside the mountain. Fortunately, the collision had not happened. Otherwise, the Silver Leopard King's injuries would have been several times worse. With one sword, the Silver Leopard King lost most of his battle strength, and his head became dizzy. What a good vibration sword! The demonic Blade King couldn't help but say, "Let me try." The Mantis Queen licked her thin scarlet lips, her eyes filled with a strong desire to fight. This kid is troublesome. Let me do it. The Demon Centipede King shook his head. He knew the Mantis Queen's strength. She was definitely a 3-star tyrant. No one under 4-star could beat her. However, the strength that Yi Chun had displayed was not much weaker than the Mantis Queen. Moreover, he could already see that Yi Chun had not used his full strength yet. The hope of the Mantis Queen beating him was very slim. Of course, He did not think that Yi Chun could easily beat the Mantis Queen. You think I am not his opponent? The Mantis Queen was a bit dissatisfied. The Demon Centipede King explained, we are not here to spar. If I am not wrong, his real body is already rushing towards the Blood Sky continent. All right then. The Mantis Queen's eyes flashed, and she gave up on the idea of fighting Yi Chun. Let's just watch from the side. The Demon Centipede King's Sky Demonic Hand. You should know the power. The Iron Hoof Beast King said to the Mantis Queen, Sky Demonic Hand. The Mantis Queen could not help but shiver. It was as if this killer move had infinite power. Just thinking about it made her feel afraid. Facing the Demon Centipede King, Yi Chun's expression became solemn. The Demon Centipede King was a genuine top-notch king. According to the outside world's guesses, his strength was at 4-star mid-level. As for what level, although Yi Chun was not very clear, it should not be too far off. With the strength of this consciousness avatar, he was really not a match. Delay for a while longer. Wait for my real body to come. Yi Chun decided to fight for a while longer, not giving the opponent a chance to end the battle quickly. Yi Chun, I have no intention of being enemies with you. I hope that today's fight will not make us mortal enemies. Unexpectedly, the Demon Centipede King's attitude was very humble. He knew better than anyone that Yi Chun's consciousness avatar had the strength of a 3-star peak or 3-star tyrant. His real body was at least 4-star mid-level or above. This made him somewhat miscalculate, and he cursed inwardly. But the arrow had already been knocked, and it had to be fired. He had to get the Savage Stone no matter what. In Elysium, the level of one's strength was too important. If Yi Chun had been a normal top-notch king, the Demon Centipede King would not have been willing to offend Yi Chun unscrupulously, but he would not have lowered himself either. But now his attitude had changed. In his heart, Yi Chun's position had undoubtedly risen to the level of a big shot. Becoming enemies with a big shot was not a wise move. I also do not want to become mortal enemies with you, so I hope you will stop while you're ahead. Just like the Demon Centipede King, Yi Chun was also not willing to become enemies with the Demon Centipede King. The Demon Centipede King was not scary, but the Terminator Demon sect behind him was indeed a super large sect. Especially the sect leader of the Terminator Demon sect. He was a bona fide titled king. People called him the Terminator Demon Emperor. His Terminator Demon arts and king-slaying hand were extremely frightening. Well said. Take this. The Demon Centipede King took a deep breath, and his aura rapidly expanded. Opening his palm, he struck out at Yi Chun. Wong. The evil, vanquishing sword vibrated to the point of distortion, and Yi Chun met it with his sword. Zizizi. A scene that shocked Yi Chun occurred. The vibrating power, which was usually unstoppable, instantly melted the moment it encountered the Demon Centipede King's palm energy, like snow in winter meeting the blazing sun. Demonic Hand of Death. Yi Chun's expression became more and more serious. He had long heard that the Demon Centipede King's demonic hand of death could melt all things. Seeing it today, it was indeed true. Chapter 9:33. Demonic Centipede Great Land. After dissolving Yi Chun's vibrating sword power with one palm, Demonic Centipede King's right hand made a half circle, and another palm was thrown out. This palm was twice as powerful as the previous one. The bright chi was like a huge magnetic field, and all the pressure was gathered inside. Wherever it went, the demonic centipede palm power that had not dissipated before was all sucked in, and the power was even more powerful. Heaven Wounding Sword. Yi Chun's spirit, chi, and spirit were highly concentrated. He could feel that demonic centipede king's killing move could not only dissolve the chi power, but could also easily dissolve a person. If he was not careful, this consciousness body might be turned into nothingness. Holding the evil shattering sword with both hands, Yi Chun's waist twisted, and the evil shattering sword was like a green dragon coming out of its cave, carrying a terrifying, vibrating power. It flew out madly, and the ripples spread out in a fan shape. Boom! The two completely different powers clashed together, and the space was shattered, and a huge black hole appeared. This black hole was so big that a mountain could be filled in. Luckily, the two of them are fighting in the sky. Otherwise, the whole Zhang Tian sect would have been sucked in by the hole and would have been smashed to pieces. Demonic Centipede King's power was much stronger than Yi Chen's consciousness body. After the demonic centipede palm power dispelled the vibrating sword power with some difficulty, it rushed towards Yi Chen like a hot knife through butter. Looking at this posture, the remaining power was still comparable to a 3-star Overlord level. And at this time, Yi Chen's old power had been used up, and he had not recovered yet. So how could he block it? So Yi Chen dodged. The space twisted slightly, and Yi Chen appeared dozens of miles away, as if he had teleported, dodging the demonic centipede palm power. Without a sound, the mountains below Yi Chen turned into nothingness, all turned into dust by the demonic centipede palm power. In the void, there was a strong voltage, and the attribute of the voltage was darkness. Demonic centipede palm. It contained the two profound meanings of darkness and thunder. This martial art is simply invincible. It's unlikely that he created it himself. It was not difficult to shatter the mountains into dust. However, it was difficult to shatter them into dust. The profoundness of the heavenly demonic transformation hand was extremely profound. It was definitely a peak, profound martial technique. However, the demonic king had not raised the might of this martial technique to the level of a peak, profound martial technique. Otherwise, the demonic king would be able to fight against the sovereign. Just as Yi Chen had expected, the demonic hand transformation was indeed not created by the demon king, but by a senior of the Terminator demon sect. In order to bring out the full potential of the demonic hand transformation, the profound truths of darkness and lightning had to be perfected and perfectly fused. The demon king was still very far from this step. Yi Chen, you are not my opponent. I advise you to stop. We only want the Savage Stone. The demon Sea King advised. The Savage Stone was left behind by Senior Battle King for his descendants. The ones who should stop are you. Yi Chen knew that he could not take a step back at this time. Not to mention that Senior Battle King had helped him comprehend the immortal sword intent. He could not retreat for himself. Once he retreated, others would think that he was afraid of the Terminator demon sect. As a peak king, he had to be tough when he needed to be. That way, he would be able to avoid trouble. If he kept a low profile, he would only be forced into a corner. As the saying goes, a kind person would be bullied, and a kind horse would be ridden. At this time, he had to hold his ground and not waver. Then don't blame me. A cold light flickered in the demon Sea King's eyes. He planned to destroy this consciousness projection of Yi Chen. He did not believe that Yi Chen would chase after him for a consciousness projection. The reason why the Terminator demon sect was able to stand at the peak of the Blood Sky continent was not only because of their reputation, but also because of their absolute strength. Demonic Void. With a roar, the demon Sea King used the Sky Demonic Hand's true ace attack. One palm attack shattered the void, turning it into nothingness. If Yi Chen wanted to use the space profound movement art to avoid the attack, it would be 10 times harder. This martial art is indeed ridiculously powerful. Yi Chen had never seen such a powerful martial art before. Of course, this did not mean that the Sky Demonic Hand was invincible. The main reason was that Yi Chen had just entered the life and death realm, and had not fought with many life and death realm kings, not to mention a titled king. That day, the Black Dragon Old Ancestor had only warned him, and the two did not fight. However, as of now, the Sky Demonic Hand was undoubtedly the most powerful martial art that Yi Chen had ever seen. I wonder how powerful the two-peak profound martial arts left behind by Senior Fire Emperor will be. Fire Emperor was already dead, and his storage ring contained the two-peak, profound martial arts he was most proud of. One was Merciless Water and Fire, and the other was Sun Glory. Merciless Water and Fire naturally contained Water Profound and Fire Profound, while Sun Glory contained 3 great profounds, Fire Profound, Earth Profound, and Water Profound. If Yi Chen were not a sword cultivator, he would have long since been prepared to learn these two-peak profounds. Unfortunately, he was a sword artist, and could not perfectly use merciless water and sun glory. He could only wait for the day when he could fuse the essence of these two moves into his own sword arts and create his own peak profound sword arts. Facing this move, Yi Chun had no intention of facing it head-on, because doing so would only lead to death. Sword domain erupted, and Yi Chun hastily retreated. At this moment, the effect of sword domain was much greater than space profound. Not only could it weaken the might of the demonic hand, it could also sharply increase his speed. On the other hand, space profound was restricted by space, and the space was too chaotic. With Yi Chun's current space profound, he didn't have much confidence in dodging. Shinho had said before that apart from some titled kings proficient in speed, there would not be more than 3 to 5 people who could deal with Yi Chun. Demonic Beast King could not deal with Yi Chun's main body, but if he was stronger than Yi Chun, he could threaten Yi Chun. Since Demonic Beast King had Sky Demonic Hand, it could not be ruled out that others had some moves that could restrain space profound. Even though Yi Chun had used Sword Domain to weaken a portion of the Demonic Hand's might and dodged it rapidly, the Demonic Void was ultimately the Sky Demonic Hand's true ultimate move. Half of Yi Chun's body was still brushed by it. The price was that he lost half of his strength, and his consciousness avatar almost collapsed. If it came again, his consciousness avatar would be destroyed without a doubt. My main body is here. At this moment, Yi Chun revealed a faint smile. Yi Chun, take another palm strike from me. The Demonic Beast King was unforgiving. He followed up with a palm strike, and space shattered once again. The violent spatial power made it difficult to even stabilize one's body, let alone teleport. But Yi Chun did not dodge or evade. He even put away his evil vanquishing sword. What's going on? The Iron Hoof Demon King, Silver Leopard King, and Mantis Queen were somewhat puzzled. Could it be that Yi Chun believed that he was no match for the Demonic Beast King and was prepared to stop resisting? Just as the demonic palm was about to hit Yi Chun's body, another Yi Chun suddenly appeared in front of Yi Chun. The main body had arrived. Shielding his consciousness avatar behind him, Yi Chun casually pulled out the Sky Scorpio sword and slashed out. Pucci, the demonic beast palm, was said to be able to transform all living things. But in front of absolute strength, it still hit a wall. It was sliced in two by Yi Chun's sword, and a several li long crack appeared in the space. This is the strength of Yi Chun's main body. Yi Chun's sudden appearance startled the demonic beast king, but he quickly regained his calm. The Sky Demonic Beast King was almost invincible in the same realm, even when facing a peak king with high-rank 4-star battle strength. He could dissolve a portion of the opponent's energy. However, he discovered that Yi Chun's sword energy was very hard to dissolve. This martial art is not bad. Yi Chun was not surprised by this result. His sword contained the destruction sword intent. Destruction, what was destruction? It was naturally able to destroy all living things. In the end, the Sky Demonic Beast King was trained, so how could it dissolve the vibrating sword energy containing the destruction sword intent? The reason why it could dissolve the vibrating sword energy of the consciousness avatar was because the consciousness avatar's destruction sword intent was not strong enough. You take a sword of mine as well. Yi Chun held the sword with one hand and slashed down. It was still the sky cutting sword. Ong! A dazzling golden light filled the demonic beast king's vision. Demonic beast void. The demonic beast king's Zhun Yuan exploded to the limit as he slashed out a palm at the golden light. Pung! The golden light disappeared, but the demonic beast king's body seemed to have been struck by lightning, flying backward and spurting out a large amount of blood. What a destruction sword intent! Forcefully stabilizing his body, the demonic beast king wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. The demonic beast king was a peak king after all. His cultivation base was over 1,000 years. Although the purity of his Zhun Yuan was not as pure as Yi Chun's, when the quantity reached a certain level, it still had a huge effect. Compared to Yi Chun, the demonic beast king's cultivation base was definitely 5 times the former. Therefore, 50% of Yi Chun's sword power was cancelled out by the demonic beast palm force, and 30% by his protective Zhun Yuan. The vibrating power that was transmitted into his body was only the last 20%, which was not enough to heavily injure the demonic Beast King. Nirvana Spatial Freeze. The demonic Beast King cultivated the same cultivation technique as the Terminator demon sect leader, Nirvana Demon Emperor. The Nirvana demon art could give rise to the Nirvana domain. The demonic Beast King naturally had not reached that step, but he was close. As he madly pushed the Nirvana demon art, the space immediately condensed and cracks appeared. These cracks became still. Yi-chan felt the restriction on his body increase. The demonic Beast King's Nirvana spatial freeze didn't surprise him too much. However, when combined with the opponent's over 1,000 years cultivation base, the restriction became much stronger. Demonic Beast King, you're not my opponent. Stop. Yi-chan turned a blind eye to all of this. The victor has yet to be decided. You're speaking too early. The demonic Beast King was very confident in his strength. He knew that Yi-chan's greatest weakness was that his cultivation base wasn't deep enough. If the battle continued, the scales of victory would tilt towards him. Seems like you won't give up until you reach the Yellow River. Yi-chan didn't continue persuading him. The Sky Scorpio sword swung out, withdrawing 50% of its power. Buzz! Immediately, an invisible ripple spread out, and the Nirvana domain created by the demonic Beast King was immediately torn open. The ripple instantly spread to his body. Pung, 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 pung. This sword wasn't an ordinary killing move, but the true heaven-inflicted sword. Withdrawing 50% of its power, there was still 50% of it rushing out. The demonic Beast King felt as if there were many explosives buried in his body, exploding simultaneously. Blood splattered, and even his bones were blown out. It should be known that Yi-chan's heaven-inflicted sword could even destroy stars, let alone a human body. And this was when he was still holding back. Chapter 9:34. Too powerful. He definitely has peak 4-star battle strength. Mantis Queen cried out involuntarily. The gap between 3 stars and 4 stars was huge. Within 4 stars, the gap was also huge, but it was still limited. If Yi-chan had high 4-star battle strength, he would at most be 3 to 4 times stronger than Demon Nightmare King, and would not be able to injure him in a few moves. Only peak 4-star battle strength, 2 small realms higher than Demon Nightmare King, could he easily suppress him. Previously, the reason why Yi-chan could contend with Demon Nightmare King with his mental perception body was mainly because his space profound was too profound, and his dodging speed was extremely fast. Otherwise, with his mental perception body strength as a 3-star tyrant, he would not be able to exchange 1 or 2 moves with mid-4-star battle strength Demon Nightmare King. After all, the gap between the two was too big. Demon Nightmare King, you guys go back. Putting away the Sky Scorpio sword, Yi-chan said indifferently. Cough, cough, cough. Demon Nightmare King continuously coughed out blood clots from his mouth. There were dozens of bloody holes on his body, and each of them had pierced through his body, exposing even his bones. He hurriedly operated his undying body to recover from his frightening injuries. Demon Nightmare King raised his head and said in a hoarse voice, Yi-chan, I admit that you are very powerful. In this world, no one has made as much progress as you. You have peak 4-star battle strength as soon as you enter life and death realm. However, I advise you not to meddle in things that you shouldn't meddle in. The 4 of us are only here to probe you. The truly powerful figures have yet to arrive. It turned out that Demon Nightmare King and the other 3 already knew that Yi-chan would meddle in this matter. On the surface, they were trying to seize the Savage Stone, but they were secretly trying to probe Yi-chan's bottom line. Of course, the Savage Stone was their ultimate goal. Powerful figures? I see. Yi-chan thought for a while and immediately understood. It seemed like all of the king warriors in the Blood Sky Land had been eyeing the Savage Stone for a long time. However, the school had the protection of the Fire Emperor. Who was the Fire Emperor? He was a peak warrior with a 6-star battle power, and it would be hard to find someone who could compete with him in the whole true spirit world. Once he got angry, who would dare to say anything? He wanted to protect the school, and whoever dared to touch the school would be courting death. However, 500 years had passed, and the Fire Emperor had not appeared for a long time, which would inevitably raise people's suspicions. Because of the Fire Emperor's accumulated power, everyone was still waiting. Right now, they could not wait any longer, so they sent 4 king warriors to test the waters, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Frowning, he felt for the first time how deep the water in the Blood Sky land was. All of the king warriors had their eyes on the savage stone of the Zhang Tian martial school, and he alone was too weak. Yi Chen, leave now. There is still a chance. Demon Nightmare King saw that Yi Chen was deep in thought and shouted. Taking a deep breath, Yi Chen lifted up his eyes and said, "Today's matter, I am definitely going to get involved." Demon Nightmare King's expression changed, and he was about to speak. "Since you do not want to leave, then don't." The void trembled, and 3 figures seemed to have passed through space and appeared not far away. Of these 3 people, one was a black-haired, middle-aged man with disdainful eyes that carried the intent of nirvanic extermination. Another was a hunchbacked, old woman with triangular eyes that were rather sinister. The last one was a burly and valiant middle-aged man with blood-red hair and a mouth full of sharp teeth. Destructive Demon Emperor, Ancient Camel Granny Xian, Bloodshark King. Yi Chen recognized the 3 immediately. The black-haired middle-aged man was the leader of the destructive demon sect, Destructive Demon Emperor. The hunchbacked old woman was the leader of the Ancient Camel sect, Ancient Camel Granny Xian. The blood-haired middle-aged man was the leader of the Bloodshark family, Bloodshark King. Destructive Demon Emperor was one of the few titled monarchs in Blood Sky continent. Ancient Camel Granny Xian was a 4-star tyrant, and Bloodshark King was a peak 4-star warrior. The formation formed by the 3 of them was extremely powerful. One was a titled monarch king, and the other 2 were peak tier kings with peak 4-star battle power. Sect leader, Demon Nightmare Dynasty's Destructive Demon Emperor, cupped his hands. Demon Emperor, Xian Granny, Blood Shark King, Mantis Queen, Silver Leopard King, and Iron Hoof Beast King also cupped their fists. Destructive Demon Emperor nodded slightly, and his eyes landed on Yi Chen. In the next second, his body shook and a vast, demonic Zhen Yuan spread out, affecting the surreal space. Black metal patterns appeared in the surreal space, cold, lonely, and lifeless. Nirvana Domain. Different from Demon Nightmare King's Nirvana Stare, Destructive Demon Emperor's Nirvana Domain contained the power of rules, and it was the extremely rare Nirvana rules. Even if it was only a trace, it was still dozens of times more powerful than Nirvana Stare. Creak, creak. Yi Chen could feel his protective Zhen Yuan groaning and his bones groaning. Nirvana Domain ignored all defenses and affected the inside of his body, causing his battle power to drop to the bottom. If he didn't respond immediately, Yi Chen had no doubt that Destructive Demon Emperor would kill him. Boom! Originally, the Sword Domain's release was silent. However, due to the Nirvana Domain's existence, the 2 fiercely collided. This collision turned formless into tangible, forming a clear dividing line. At the same time, the pressure within Yi Chen's body disappeared, completely expelled by the Sword Domain. Sword Domain against Nirvana Domain. Second layer of Sword Domain. Destructive Demon Emperor, who was about to attack, narrowed his eyes. Among all the titled monarchs, the one he feared the most was Azure Cloud Sword Emperor, because Azure Cloud Sword Emperor's Sword Domain had reached the 3rd layer, completely suppressing his Nirvana Domain. Yi Chen's Sword Domain was far from Azure Cloud Sword Emperor's, but at least it had formed sword rules. If Yi Chen's cultivation base was a bit higher, his Nirvana Domain would probably be useless. Oomph! With a light snort, the color of Nirvana Demon Emperor's Nirvana Domain deepened. The surrounding space seemed to have turned into metal, giving off a feeling of hopeless loneliness. Yi Chen's expression didn't change. He operated Green Lotus Sword Arts to the limit, and the powerful Sword Domain fought against the Nirvana Domain. As the pressure increased, the Sword Domain changed. Above Yi Chen's head, an illusory sword shadow appeared, as if it didn't exist in this world. Peak of the 2nd layer of Sword Domain. Facing the huge pressure, Yi Chun had a breakthrough. This, Granny Xian and Bloodshark King didn't expect Yi Chen's sword domain to be able to fight against destructive Demon Emperor's Nirvana domain. It should be known that destructive Demon Emperor's cultivation base was more than 2,000 years. With 2,000 years of cultivation base to support the Nirvana domain, his innate advantage was far beyond Yi Chen's. However, at this moment, destructive Demon Emperor only had a slight advantage. The Great Destruction Demon Emperor felt somewhat embarrassed. He was a demonic cultivator, and the most important thing was to be carefree. Therefore, he had always been domineering, not allowing others to resist. Even if Yi Chun was a genius comparable to the ancient times, he wouldn't give him the slightest bit of face. Originally, he wanted to use the Nirvana domain to seal Yi Chun, making it impossible for him to escape. However, Yi Chen's sword domain made him miscalculate. With the sword domain, his plan to seal Yi Chun would fail. Sizzle. The Nirvana domain shone with a layer of cold light. Destructive Demon Emperor pushed the Nirvana domain to the limit and said coldly, "If you want to fight against me, then you must be prepared to die." Boom! Destructive Demon Emperor threw a palm toward Yi Chun. There was an ancient word imprinted on his palm. King. King killing palm. King exterminating palm shot out, and a huge palm silhouette shrouded Yi Chun. The word king on it carried a domineering aura of supremacy and killing intent. Yi Chun's scalp went numb. Destructive Demon Emperor's king killing palm made him feel the threat of death. If he couldn't dodge this palm, he would die for sure. Pop! The space warped, and Yi Chun disappeared. The sword domain also disappeared along with him. Without the sword domain's resistance, the Nirvana domain of Demon Emperor occupied even more territory. The shadow of a huge palm covered the heaven and earth, causing the sun and moon to lose their radiance and the stars to darken. Along the way, a vast expanse of space was destroyed. A frightening spatial power, pushed by the King Annihilation Palm, formed a spatial storm that connected the heavens and earth. As long as Yi Chun appeared, he would immediately be enveloped. Yi Chun didn't dare to stop for a moment. He used his space profound movement skill to teleport 3 or 4 times. He only stopped when the power of the King killing palm weakened. At this time, he was already 10,000 miles away. In other words, within 10,000 miles, the King killing palm could kill him. Terrifying. Yi Chun could only use one word to describe the Nirvana Demon Emperor and Demon Emperor's King killing palm. Terrifying, extremely terrifying. Can you escape? Nirvana Demon Emperor's figure flickered as he chased. Granny Xian, Bloodshark Monarch, and the other 4 monarchs followed closely. Yi Chun, I told you to leave. Now you can't leave even if you want to. The Demon King knew Nirvana Demon Emperor's temper very well. He was a man of his word. Because he had mastered the Nirvana domain, he was extremely murderous. He didn't attack, but when he did, he would strike like lightning without any hesitation. Yi Chun, if you think that you can be fearless just because Patriarch Black Dragon can't do anything to you, then you are gravely mistaken. The people that I, Nirvana Demon Emperor, want to kill have never survived. The existence of the Nirvana domain allowed Nirvana Demon Emperor's speed to reach an unimaginable level. He was only slightly slower than Yi Chen's space profound movement skill. Not to mention Nirvana Demon Emperor, any title monarch speed would not be slow. Those who could surpass title monarchs were all peak monarchs with extremely high achievements in speed. At most, I have a 40% chance of escaping. Yi Chun sighed inwardly. Nirvana Demon Emperor was worthy of being Nirvana Demon Emperor. He was not someone he could contend against at his current stage. Without escaping, Yi Chun took out the high sight painting from his storage ring. With a shake of his hand, the painting unfolded. Senior Yuan Emperor, sorry for disturbing you. Buzz. The ink-like figure wriggled, and Yuan Emperor's image walked out. As soon as he appeared, Yuan Emperor saw a palm with the word King covering the sky and covering the earth. The sun, moon, and stars dimmed as killing intent filled the sky. What a good demonic martial skill. Yuan Emperor's expression turned grave. His clothes fluttered without any wind, and a domain different from Sword Domain and Nirvana Domain burst out. At the same time, Yuan Emperor's body blossomed with boundless light as he punched out. This punch was incomparably vast and resplendent. If King Extermination Palm was tyrannical and filled with killing intent, then Yuan Emperor's punch was filled with the aura of the Imperial Tao. Chapter 9:35. Rumble. Yuan Emperor's supreme art clashed with Nirvana Demon Emperor's King Annihilation Palm. For a moment, sand and pebbles were blown into the air within a radius of 10,000 li. Within a radius of 1,000 li, a storm was formed, flattening everything in its path. Within a radius of 100 li, the space within 100 li was shattered like a spiderweb. At the center of the spiderweb was an energy ball with a diameter of 100 meters. Granny Xian, Bloodshark King, and the others were hundreds of li away, but they were still blown away by the huge shockwave. Apart from the first two, the others all vomited large mouthfuls of blood. Yichen was safe because he was standing behind Yuan Emperor. The energy ball suddenly dissipated, and Yuan Emperor and Nirvana Demon Emperor each took a dozen steps back. Kid, you really know how to provoke enemies. Last time it was a human Demon Emperor, and this time it a demonic titled monarch. Tilting his head, Yuan Emperor said helplessly. Yichen said apologetically, Senior, I'll have to trouble you again this time. Looking back at Nirvana Demon Emperor, Yuan Emperor said, Fine. Instead of being sealed in an ink painting and never seeing the light of day, it's better to let out one last ray of light. As a famous titled monarch in the past, Yuan Emperor preferred to live a passionate life. Although being sealed in an ink painting could preserve his vitality, it was not a life he liked. The reason he left this ink painting was to deal with the alien races, not to extend his life in another way. Infinite Light, Emperor Dao Divine Fist. Who are you to Yuan Emperor? With Nirvana Demon Emperor's status and eyesight, when Yuan Emperor used his ultimate skill, his body burst out with infinite light, and his fist technique was filled with the aura of the Emperor Dao. It was very similar to the supreme skill of Yuan Emperor in the records, so he asked subconsciously. But after asking, he shook his head. No, you are not a pure flesh and blood life form. You used a special method to seal part of your true Yuan and use it to create flesh and blood, which can be exchanged. You can think of me as Yuan Emperor's avatar. Yuan Emperor had no intention of hiding his identity. Yuan Emperor's avatar. Nirvana Demon Emperor was dazed. The next moment, his eyes burst out with astonishing light. Yuan Emperor's avatar. This was equivalent to admitting his true identity as Yuan Emperor. Granny Xian, Bloodshark King, and the others also reacted. They were all dumbfounded. The Yuan Emperor from tens of thousands of years ago had actually appeared here, even if it wasn't his true body. Yichen, I didn't think that before you fell, you would do something that made me feel good. The Great Destruction Demon Emperor, have always wanted to see how powerful the ancient titled monarchs of the same era were. But the ancient people have already passed away, and this wish of mine is hard to realize. I thought that I could only live in regret for the rest of my life, but I didn't expect it to come true today. The Great Destruction Demon Emperor was overjoyed. He knew that it was impossible for him to possess the strength of the Yuan Emperor. He wanted to know who was stronger between him and the Yuan Emperor at the same cultivation realm. This guy still has such a wish. Yichen rolled his eyes. He had talked to Yuan Emperor before. Yuan Emperor's battle prowess was indeed inferior to the Demon Flower Emperor. According to some information in Monarch, Nirvana Demon Emperor was slightly inferior to the Demon Flower Emperor. Even if he hid his strength, he would at most be on par with the Demon Flower Emperor. It was impossible for him to surpass the Demon Flower Emperor. However, Yuan Emperor also said that under normal battle prowess, although he was inferior to the Demon Flower Emperor, if they were to fight to the death, the Demon Flower Emperor would definitely suffer serious injuries that couldn't be healed in a short period of time. It would be impossible for him to recover to his peak within 3 to 5 years. At that time, the reason why he was glad that the Demon Flower Emperor didn't make a move was because Yi Chen's strength was too weak. Even if the Demon Flower Emperor was seriously injured, he could easily crush Yichun. But now, Yichun's strength was not something that a monarch could crush easily. Once the Nirvana Demon Emperor was seriously injured, it was very likely that he wouldn't be Yichun's opponent. As for Gu Tuo, Xian Granny, and Bloodshark King, it was even more impossible for them to stop Yichun. But to be honest, when fighting with the Nirvana Demon Emperor, the Yuan Emperor had an innate disadvantage that couldn't be made up. His Zhen Yuan was too little, and his soul force was far weaker than a monarch of the same rank. If the Nirvana Demon Emperor was replaced by the Yuan Emperor, he might not even have the strength of a monarch. The Nirvana Demon Emperor's words made Yichun feel a little shameless. The Yuan Emperor didn't feel that it was fair or unfair. He said indifferently, "Since your wish is so strong, then I will satisfy you. I'm just afraid that the process and result of realizing your wish won't satisfy you. I think I will be satisfied." The Nirvana Demon Emperor's eyes turned cold. Kill. Throwing away all distracting thoughts, the Nirvana Demon Emperor's figure was like a ghost, hovering between illusion and reality. He charged toward the Yuan Emperor. The space barrier was nothing in his eyes. The Yuan Emperor's figure suddenly moved, and the space barrier couldn't stop him. He could enter the void or the outside world at any time. Boom, 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 boom. As soon as the two came into contact, they immediately started fighting. The sky darkened, and the sun and moon lost their light. The surrounding 10,000 miles became the battlefield of the two. Because the two were moving too fast, they were still here at one moment, but in the next moment, they were thousands of miles away. The Gu Tuo, Xian Granny, Bloodshark King, and the others were panicking because they didn't know where was safe. Voila! Suddenly, an invisible palm force slashed toward Gu Tuo Xian Per. Gu Tuo Xian Per quickly escaped into the void, wanting to avoid the palm force, but the palm force was really strange. It seemed to have the effect of shrinking the earth into an inch. It forcefully slashed her body and cut off her left arm. The Gu Tuo Xian Granny screamed and fled. She flew tens of thousands of miles away before stopping with a pale face. Retreat. The Bloodshark King didn't expect the Yuan Emperor to ambush them while fighting with the Nirvana Demon Emperor. His heart went numb, fearing that the Yuan Emperor would do the same to him. Following closely behind the Gu Tuo Xian Granny, the five retreated tens of thousands of miles away. They watched from afar, not daring to approach. Once they sensed the two sides moving over, they would immediately retreat again. Yuan Emperor, don't be presumptuous. The Nirvana Demon Emperor's face was very ugly. Since we are enemies, there is no such thing as presumptuous or not. The Yuan Emperor's answer was very straightforward. Very well, today I will let you, a peerless expert of the past, fall miserably and witness the legend of me, the Nirvana Demon Emperor. The Nirvana Demon Emperor pushed his Zhen Yuan to the limit, not giving the Yuan Emperor a chance to divert his attention to deal with others. As soon as the Nirvana Demon Emperor went all out, the Yuan Emperor became somewhat strained. His regular battle power was weaker than the Nirvana Demon Emperor's, not even 1/10 of his peak strength. King Destruction Heaven Scripture. King Destruction Reincarnation. King Destruction Tao. Destroy, destroy, destroy. The Nirvana Demon Emperor unleashed the killing moves of the king, exterminating palm one after another. Each move was stronger and more domineering than the last. The startling sky and the extreme Taiji barrier above his head were ripped apart in a frenzy. It was as though a huge black hole had appeared in the sky, allowing one to see the distant starry sky. The Yuan Emperor retreated again and again, his aura fluctuating. The Yuan Emperor is going to lose, and is a good loss. The Gu Tuo Xian Granny had a lot of resentment towards the Yuan Emperor. At this moment, seeing the Yuan Emperor unable to fight back, a carefree expression appeared on her face, and her sinister eyes were filled with schadenfreude. Let's fight in the starry sky. Using the Nirvana Demon Emperor's palm power, the Yuan Emperor took advantage of the situation to make a turn, breaking through the shocking sky and extreme void barrier, and rushed into the starry sky, disappearing in the blink of an eye. Where do you think you're going? The Nirvana Demon Emperor only felt that his mind was clear. In the past, the peerless experts were beaten by him, which made him extremely happy. Even the Nirvana Demon art seemed to be showing signs of a breakthrough. With a teleport, the Nirvana Demon Emperor also rushed into the starry sky. Go! How could the Gu Tuo Xian Granny, Blood Shark King, and the others miss such a shocking battle? One by one, they also broke through the two heavens and entered the zenith sky, which was the starry sky of the Elysium. Yichen looked at the scene of chaos and the eruption of earth fire. He took a deep breath, stirred his Zhen Yuan, and was the last to enter the starry sky. As for his consciousness, he returned to the Eternal Sky sect. The starry sky was incomparably vast, and the sky was filled with endless stars. In front of him, two figures turned into beams of light, fighting fiercely. From time to time, one could see small stars being destroyed, bursting with brilliant light. However, these lights could not stop the two. Gu Tuo, Xin Granny, and the others followed from afar. Yi Chun, on the other hand, followed from another direction. The battle between the Yuan Emperor and the Nirvana Demon Emperor was too shocking. It was the first time that Yi Chun saw a battle between titled monarchs. One was the clone of the peerless expert in the past, and the other was a titled monarch. In a certain sense, the two had the same status. After all, in this era, 5-star battle strength was already considered the peak battle strength. Titled monarchs with 6-star battle strength were always elusive, and there were probably only 2 or 3 of them. After sending Yuan Emperor flying hundreds of miles away with a palm strike, the Nirvana Demon Emperor laughed and said, "Yuan Emperor, you are not my opponent. Today, this starry sky will be your final grave." Yuan Emperor did not speak to the Nirvana Demon Emperor. He turned his head and looked at Yi Chun, who was tens of thousands of miles away, and said, "Yi Chun, I will leave that matter to you. Senior Yuan Emperor, actually, I have 40% chance of escaping." Yi Chun somewhat regretted summoning the Yuan Emperor. "No." The Yuan Emperor shook his head. "This battle is what I want the most. How many years has it been since I had such a satisfying battle? Although this is not my peak battle strength, don't forget that if you die, I will fall into the hands of the opponent. So, whether you summon me or not doesn't depend on whether you want or not. It is something you must do. Otherwise, what is the point of my existence? But don't worry. After this battle, I will at most lose all my strength. I will not disappear. He alone cannot destroy my little bit of light." The Yuan Emperor's eyes were filled with strong confidence. This confidence infected Yi Chun. "Yuan Emperor, it is useless even if you leave your last words, because he will not be able to escape either." The Nirvana Demon Emperor thought that the Yuan Emperor was leaving his last words, so he sneered. Turning his head, the Yuan Emperor looked at the Nirvana Demon Emperor without any emotion. His eyes were empty, but they did not lose the color of emotion. It was as if he wanted to swallow the entire starry sky. "I will let you see the methods of the ancient titled monarchs." 3 flowers borrowing path. On top of the Yuan Emperor's head, 3 illusory flowers appeared. 1 red, 1 yellow, 1 blue. The 3 flowers complemented each other, giving off a mysterious brilliance. Chapter 9:36. The means of an ancient titled monarch? That's for the best. Otherwise, what's the point of defeating you? Nirvana Demon Emperor noticed 3 illusory flowers of different colors appearing on top of Yuan Emperor's head. His eyes flashed, and his killing intent became even more intense. More than 2,000 years of cultivation was pushed out. The majestic aura caused a small star nearby to tremble and flicker with starlight. King Annihilation Dao. Nirvana Demon Emperor roared and pounced at Yuan Emperor. He waved his hand, and an incomparably huge palm-light shadow shot towards Yuan Emperor. The king character on it seemed to come alive, wanting to suck in Yuan Emperor and refine him to death. Being able to refine the avatar of the last titled monarch on the Emperor's scar steel to death, Nirvana Demon Emperor was bound to have a breakthrough. Fighting was human nature, and fighting was the source of progress. With 3 flowers floating above his head, Yuan Emperor did not retreat. His body once again blossomed with boundless light as he punched out. Imperial Tao aura filled the air, causing the stars to wail. Boom! An earth-shattering explosion occurred as the two's secret arts collided once again. A scene that made Granny Xian, Blood Shark Monarch, and the others dumbfounded happened. Nirvana, Demon Emperor, who previously held the absolute advantage, was blown away by Yuan Emperor's punch for more than 10,000 miles. Along the way, blood sprayed everywhere like a blood rainbow. Not only were Granny Xian and the others shocked, but even Yi Chun was shocked. He originally thought that after Yuan Emperor used the means of an ancient titled monarch, he would at most be slightly stronger than Nirvana, Demon Emperor, and make the latter suffer a little. He never expected that Yuan Emperor would send Nirvana, Demon Emperor flying without any suspense. Is this the means of an ancient titled monarch? Yi Chen's heart surged. Impossible. On the small star, Nirvana, Demon Emperor's figure smashed open a huge crater. He climbed up from the center of the crater, his eyes filled with disbelief. The next moment, he smashed this star that was only a few thousand miles in diameter with one palm. The Nirvana domain was pushed to the limit as it rushed towards Yuan Emperor. King Annihilation Hegemony. With blood flowing out of his mouth, Nirvana, Demon Emperor ignored it and used the most powerful killing move of King Annihilation Hegemony. Once King Annihilation Hegemony was used, a tyrannical aura soared into the stars. The huge palm shadow was like the palm of a giant, wanting to capture the sun and moon and destroy all life. The boundless light on the Yuan Emperor's body had yet to be extinguished. His glowing fist looked very small, but when he punched out, the only thing left in the world was his fist. It collided violently with the palm silhouette. Puff! Spurting out blood, Nirvana Demon Emperor was sent flying again. This time, he was sent flying even further and faster. You are very lucky, but also very unlucky. I have never used this 3-flower borrowing Tao in Elysium. I only used it when I was crossing the death road. Yuan Emperor's voice wasn't loud, but it spread out majestically. Gu Tuo Xian Pa, Blood Shark Monarch, and the others heard it. Yi Chun heard it, and Nirvana, Demon Emperor, also heard it. Yuan Emperor has also crossed the death road. Yi Chun thought. As for Yuan Emperor not using 3-flower borrowing Tao in Elysium, Yi Chun didn't find it strange. At that time in Elysium, who could make Yuan Emperor go all out? Unless it was an ancient titled monarch who left his mark on the Emperor's scar steel, Yuan Emperor was absolutely invincible. What a good 3-flower borrowing Tao. Nirvana, Demon Emperor, was a powerful titled monarch in the end. His undying body had reached the stage of blood rebirth. Although Yuan Emperor could suppress him, it would be extremely difficult to kill him. At this moment, although he looked battered and exhausted, his battle prowess hadn't decreased by much. Only his aura was a lot weaker. Swallowing a blood-red dragon eye pill, Nirvana, Demon Emperor's expression turned incomparably cold. At the same time, he waved his right hand, and a 3-colored pagoda that was less than a meter tall appeared in his hand. Not good. It's a top-grade defensive artifact. Yi Chun cursed inwardly. There were many types of artifacts. Aside from weapons and armors, there were also some odd-shaped artifacts, such as treasure ships, purple gold alms bowls, pagodas, and so on. Basically, any common object, as long as the material was good and the refining method was good, could be refined into an artifact. Among defensive artifacts, pagoda-type artifacts had always been powerful and extremely difficult to break. Yuan Emperor clearly knew that the 3-colored pagoda in Nirvana, Demon Emperor's hand was not ordinary, and his expression became a little more serious. The number of people that can force me to use the Xianyuan pagoda can be counted on one hand. The titled monarchs of ancient times are indeed worthy of being titled monarchs of ancient times. Their methods are unfathomable, but it ends here. Buzz. The Xianyuan pagoda in Nirvana, Demon Emperor's hand enlarged, and he himself appeared next to the window of the 5th floor of the Xianyuan pagoda. No wonder titled monarchs rarely fight each other. Once the Xianyuan pagoda appeared, Granny Xian and the others finally understood why titled monarchs rarely fought in Elysium. Not to mention the strength of titled monarchs. Because they stood at the peak of Elysium, they could easily obtain many rare treasures. If a titled monarch wanted to kill another titled monarch, not only would they have to defeat the other, they would also have to obtain the other's treasure. If the other had a super treasure that could save their life, killing the other would become impossible. Therefore, titled monarchs rarely fought each other because they knew that the price to kill the other was too great. They couldn't be careless. King Destruction, Heaven Scripture. In the distance, Nirvana Demon Emperor stood in the Xianyuan Pagoda and sent out a palm strike at Yuan Emperor. He planned on exhausting Yuan Emperor's true Yuan and winning without a fight. The three flowers above his head became more and more real. Yuan Emperor didn't retreat, and instead sent out a fist that emitted boundless light to meet the attack. His aura was boundless, covering the entire sky. Boom! The Xianyuan Pagoda was sent flying, and Nirvana Demon Emperor's face paled slightly, but it soon returned to normal. What kind of secret art is this three flowers borrowing Tao? It actually increased the other party's battle power to such an extent. Although Nirvana Demon Emperor was safe and sound, Yuan Emperor's battle power was still incredible. One had to know that the other party's battle power was clearly much weaker than his, and he was completely suppressed. Huff! Spitting out a mouthful of turbid air, Yuan Emperor's face was also somewhat pale. The three flowers borrowing Tao was a heaven-class peak-tier secret art that he had spent 100 years to create. This secret art was called Three Flowers Borrowing Tao, and it was profound. Three flowers referred to the three flowers of essence, qi, and soul. Borrowing Tao meant borrowing the fruit of the Tao from the heavens. Once three flowers borrowing Tao was used, essence, qi, and soul would surge. Essence represented the strength of the physical body, qi represented cultivation, and soul represented the martial artist's soul. If a martial artist's essence, qi, and soul increased, their battle power would naturally rise. If their essence, qi, and soul were damaged, their battle power would be greatly reduced, making it difficult for them to display their peak battle power. Using three flowers borrowing Tao doubled Yuan Emperor's battle power, which was why he could suppress Nirvana Demon Emperor. However, using three flowers borrowing Tao wasn't without a price. When he was at his peak, he could ignore this price. At most, he would be weakened for a period of time. However, he wasn't at his peak, and he wasn't even in his main body. Using three flowers borrowing Tao required a huge price. Now, the backlash was quietly approaching him, and he was just waiting for the moment to explode. While I'm still in the three flowers borrowing Tao state, I'll heavily injure him while my soul power surges. Making up his mind, Yuan Emperor's aura increased instead of decreasing. Yuan Emperor, I have the protection of the Xianyuan Pagoda. How can you injure me? Nirvana Demon Emperor was fearless as he stood on the 5th floor of the Xianyuan Pagoda. Whether I can injure you or not, you'll find out soon enough. Not using the Emperor Tao Divine Fist again, Yuan Emperor even retracted his domain to preserve his Yuan Qi. He closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, there was a golden halo in the depths of his eyes. Primordial Spirit Lock. With a roar, a golden halo invisible to the naked, I suddenly shot out from between Yuan Emperor's eyebrows. The golden halo was extremely fast, arriving before the Xianyuan Pagoda in the blink of an eye. A secret soul attack technique. A bad premonition flashed across the Nirvana Demon Emperor's heart, but on second thought, his soul wasn't weak, and the Yuan Emperor wasn't his true body. Even if his soul force was enhanced, it wasn't very likely for it to surpass his by too much. If he used a soul defense secret technique, it was hard to say whether his soul would even be slightly injured. Not daring to be careless, the Void Destruction Demon Emperor activated a soul defense secret art and set up layer after layer of soul defenses around his soul sea, making it impenetrable. Silently, the golden halo ignored the Xianyuan Pagoda's protection and directly drilled into Nirvana Demon Emperor's head. There was a moment of silence. Abruptly, Nirvana Demon Emperor's eyes widened, and he let out a mournful scream. The golden halo that Yuan Emperor activated actually wrapped around his soul sea. With just a slight contraction, it shattered the numerous layers of soul defenses. After shattering the soul defenses, the golden halo continued to contract, creating a circle of deep cracks in Nirvana Demon Emperor's soul sea, nearly splitting it in half. As if he had lost his mind, Nirvana Demon Emperor's body shook violently, and blood flowed from his 7 orifices. His originally strong aura suddenly weakened to the point where it was far inferior to Yi Chen's. "I hate this." After screaming, Nirvana Demon Emperor frantically activated the Xianyuan Pagoda and fled. He no longer had the demeanor of an Emperor Monarch. Secmaster Demon King was more anxious than anyone. Looking at Nirvana Demon Emperor's appearance, he must have been seriously injured. Otherwise, he wouldn't have fled so desperately. This meant that he felt a strong life and death crisis. If he didn't flee, he might die. Demon King chased after him. Gu Tuo, Xianpa, Bloodshark King, and the others naturally didn't dare to stay. Once Nirvana Demon Emperor left, all of them together wouldn't be able to withstand a single punch from Yuan Emperor. Everyone left, leaving only Yuan Emperor and Yi Chun. Puff! The tricolored flower above his head shattered, and Yuan Emperor's figure suddenly became illusory. The loss of power couldn't be suppressed, and it caused all sorts of strange phenomena. Senior Yuan Emperor. Yi Chun hurriedly went forward, wanting to support him. However, when his hands came into contact with the primitive emperor's body, he touched thin air. Yuan Emperor shook his head. "Don't worry, I've only lost all my power. It won't disappear." Primordial Spirit Lock was a heaven-class peak-tier soul attack secret technique he created. It was incomparably overbearing, but it also took away a small amount of his soul power. Adding the backlash from the tricolored flower dissipating, it was already his greatest effort to not disappear. In the future, he would truly lose all his fighting strength and would no longer be able to help Yi Chun in battle. Chapter 9:37. In the battle between Yuan Emperor and Nirvana Demon Emperor, apart from Yi Chun, Granny Gu Tuo, Bloodshark King, and other life and death kings, there was actually a spectator watching from afar. This spectator was a woman, a beautiful young woman like an enchantress. When 9 Underworld Demon King and the other demons were chasing after Yi Chun, this beautiful young woman and Azure Sky, Sword Emperor, followed the aura of the demons and rushed over. Naturally, this beautiful young woman was also a titled monarch. Although the last titled monarch who left his mark on Emperor Scar Steel is not his main body, he is still so powerful. That 3-flower Dao Borrowing and Primordial Spirit Lock can be considered one of the most powerful secret arts since ancient times. The beautiful young lady sighed. "I really want to have a battle with him to verify my achievements." Unfortunately, he no longer has any battle strength left. Nirvana Demon Emperor, the damage to your soul this time will probably cause you to be in hibernation for 10 years, unless you have some powerful treasure. The beautiful young woman did not take advantage of the situation. Titled monarchs rarely did things like harming others without benefiting themselves. Moreover, she did not have 100% assurance in killing Yi Chun. Since she could not kill him, why would she offend a genius with boundless prospects in the future? A yellow light flickered, and the beautiful young woman disappeared into the starry sky. Gone. Yi Chun let out a sigh of relief. Gone. Yuan Emperor glanced at the depths of the starry sky. When he used 3-flower Dao Borrowing, his soul power had sharply increased, allowing him to sense that someone was spying on him from the side. If he were at his peak, he would have naturally pulled this person out. However, at that time, he was fighting Nirvana Demon Emperor, so it was better to pretend to be deaf and mute, lest it bring unpredictable dangers to Yi Chun. Yi Chun being able to sense the beautiful young woman did not make Yuan Emperor feel strange. Yi Chun possessed soul eyes. In this world, there was probably no one who could hide from him. Since she left, she should not be an enemy. In Eternal Sky Sect, Li Zhongfeng and the others raised their heads in anticipation. The wait didn't last long. After a while, Yi Chen's figure appeared in the square. Elder Yi, What about the Nirvana Demon Emperor? Li Zhongfeng asked anxiously. The crisis has been temporarily resolved. Yi Chen didn't explain much. Li Zhongfeng saw that Yi Chen didn't explain the reason for Nirvana Demon Emperor's retreat, so he didn't ask. Sect leader, can I have a look at the Savage Stone? Yi Chen suddenly said. Lover's Stone? All right. Without hesitation, Li Zhongfeng took out the couple stone from his storage ring and handed it over to Yi Chen. He was absolutely unwilling to give the Savage Stone to Nirvana Demon Emperor and the others, but he was willing to give it to Yi Chen, even if Yi Chen did not return it to him. Bringing along the Savage Stone, Yi Chen returned to the Mountain Peak Hall that he owned in the Changtian sect. He planned to let Yuan Emperor determine whether or not this was the Savage Stone and what use it had. In the palace, Yi Chen lifted up the Savage Stone and studied it carefully. The Savage Stone was made of jade, with light flowing inside. It looked like a pair of mandarin ducks. However, Yi Chen's eyes were much more powerful than before. He could tell that this pair of mandarin ducks was not naturally formed, but had been modified by someone with a special method. It was just that Li Zhongfeng couldn't tell with his eyes. Opening the Mountain View painting, Yuan Emperor walked out. Yi Chen asked, Senior, is this really the Savage Stone? Yuan Emperor's body was very vague, and he couldn't hold anything. He looked at it and said slowly, It is indeed the Savage Stone. Unfortunately, there is no more savage power inside. No more savage power? What do you mean? Without it, this Savage Stone is completely worthless. It can only be used as a collection. Otherwise, the owner of the Savage Stone would not have modified it and made a pair of mandarin ducks. Completely worthless. Yi Chen forced a smile. For a worthless Savage Stone, the Great Destruction Demon Emperor and the other life and death realm warriors had almost destroyed the Zhangtian martial school. He had to admit that the Zhangtian martial school had been wronged, and so had he. What is the use of this Savage Stone? Yi Chen asked again. Yuan Emperor explained, the Savage Stone is extremely useful for the life and death realm warriors of the true spirit continent, because it is the key to finding and entering the Savage Star. Back in the day, I had also obtained a Savage Star. If it were not for the fact that you need a Savage Stone to enter the Savage Star, I would be able to show you the way to the starry sky. Savage Star. The moment Yi Chen heard this name, he knew that it was not normal. In the ancient era, the Savage Mountain was not damaged, and there were countless treasures. But a disaster fell from the sky. A sky sword came from the sky and split the true spirit continent into 3 parts, forming the true spirit continent, the blood sky continent, and the sky sword continent. Naturally, the Savage Mountain was also split apart. Then, the Elysium suffered from the alien race's war, and the Savage Mountain was almost completely destroyed. Only some of the mountain's edges remained. On the other hand, the Savage Star has an even more ancient savage power than the Savage Mountain. Over there, one would be able to feel the profound of the world more vividly and learn the profound faster. Besides that, because the Savage Star is a savage world, there are all kinds of treasures that might not even be seen in 100,000 or even 10,000 years. If one has the chance to enter the Savage Star, one's power would definitely increase drastically. If you get a Savage Stone, you have to go to the Savage Star. Only by increasing your power and protecting yourself will you have a better chance of fighting against the alien race. Senior, where can I get a Savage Stone? Hearing Yuan Emperor's words, Yi Chen finally understood the importance of the Savage Stone. It was a stone that could increase one's power by a lot, so it could not be ignored. The Savage Stone is formed by the Savage power and would only appear in the Savage Mountain. But right now, the amount of Savage Stones produced in the Savage Mountain has decreased drastically. I am afraid that under normal circumstances, it would be hard to find one. All right, does the Savage Ancient Place in the Sky Martial region still exist? Yuan Emperor asked. Yi Chen said, the Savage Ancient Place still exists. He had been there with Yin Feng and the rest before. All right, the Savage Ancient Place still has a lot of savage power. Once you enter, the chance of finding a Savage Stone should be a bit higher. Of course, some of the King Grade Forbidden Places also have a lot of Savage Mountain ranges, and there might be Savage Stones there. But things like opportunities, you might not be able to find them even if you search for 100 years. Indeed, Yi Chen faintly nodded. The Savage Stone was so important, but it was too hard to find it. Even the Great Destruction Demon Emperor had come to fight for it. It could be seen that even titled monarchs wanted a piece of Savage Stone. Yuan Emperor reminded Yi Chen one last time, although the Savage Star has a lot of opportunities, it is not a good place either. It is very dangerous. Without the power of 5-star, it is best not to go there, even if there is a Savage Stone. As someone who had entered the Savage Star before, Yuan Emperor had the most right to speak. That place was full of opportunities and dangers. It was a treasure land, but also a dangerous land. This Savage Stone did not have much use for Yi Chen, so Yi Chen returned it to Li Zhongfeng. On the second day, Yi Chen left his consciousness projection and rushed toward the true spirit continent. Days passed by. Through the Yi family's 99 Yuan return great formation, Yi Chen had already recovered the Zhen Yuan that he had lost during the battle, and he had also made some progress. Blood Skyland, Terminator Demon Martial School, Nirvana Demon Emperor had been in seclusion for half a month, and there had been no news. Demon King was extremely anxious, guarding the Terminator Demon Martial School without going out. Yi Chen, this brat, he has caused so much trouble for the leader. I will definitely take revenge in the future. I wonder how the leader is doing right now, and if he is in danger. Demon King walked back and forth. Suddenly, the space twisted, and Nirvana Demon Emperor came out. Leader. Demon King went up to greet him. Nirvana Demon Emperor's face was very pale, and his aura was a bit chaotic. It was a sign that his soul power had been injured, and he could not control his powerful cultivation. Waving his hand, Nirvana Demon Emperor was not in a good mood. He said, Zhang Tian Martial School Savage Stone, I must get it. That Yuan Emperor used the 3 flowers borrowing technique, so his power must have been greatly reduced. He might not even have the power to fight anymore. You go and inform Granny Xian and Bloodshark King. With the 3 of you, you can easily stop Yi Chen and get the Savage Stone. Yes. Demon King hesitated for a moment, then agreed. He also felt that it was impossible for Yuan Emperor to be safe. As for Yi Chen, he could at most contend with Granny Xian. With Bloodshark King and himself, one Yi Chen was nothing to worry about. Boom! At this moment, the sky above Terminator Demon Sect suddenly blossomed with an intense black light. For a moment, the heaven and earth shook, and the heaven and earth Yuan Qi became extremely chaotic. This was a sign that someone was attacking the Terminator Demon Sect formation. Outside the formation, the Devil Flower Empress, who was dressed in a gorgeous robe, had a solemn expression on her face. She slowly retracted her jade-like palm, and in front of her, a huge handprint appeared on the black metal barrier. It was covered in cracks. Demon Flower Emperor, how dare you? Because Nirvana Demon Emperor's soul was severely injured, his perception was greatly reduced. Through the formation, he saw Demon Flower Emperor, and he couldn't help but grit his teeth in anger. Demon Flower Emperor didn't say a word, and her palm landed on the metal barrier again. Boom! This time, a large part of the metal barrier caved in, and it almost collapsed. Underneath the formation, numerous spirit veins spewed out endless spirit stone Yuan Qi, strengthening the formation. Demon King even personally controlled the formation core, stabilizing the formation. Demon Flower Emperor, you dare to be impudent in my Terminator Demon Sect. I swear that I will destroy your Chaos Demon Sea lineage and humiliate you in every possible way. Nirvana Demon Emperor had never experienced such a humiliating situation. As one of the few titled monarchs, he was actually attacked and humiliated in front of his sect. People of the devil, Dao couldn't bear to be humiliated. With his soul injured, Nirvana Demon Emperor's killing intent became even more intense. Creak, creak. Before the first wave subsided, another wave rose. On the other side of the formation, a terrifying explosion sounded out as well. A white-clothed female stood in the air, and icy white spatial gates continuously formed, attacking the formation. These spatial gates contained the power of space, and their effects were much better than the Devil Flower Emperor's palm power. In a few blinks of an eye, a complete space gate gradually appeared on the Terminator Demon Sect formation. Once the space gate was imprinted, one could easily enter. Shinho, you came too? Are you crazy? Ah, you dare to humiliate me like this? Nirvana, Demon Emperor, was about to go crazy, and his eyes were blood red.